Okay.
Shelley Hunt.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. So we're going to move on down to adoption and additional changes to the agenda.
Yes, I would request that we make several changes to the agenda to make some adjustments, and so I'll let you know what those changes are. I request that we have normal process through 7.08. Then we jump to 17.01, which is the SRD contract, and really what I'm looking to do is bring forward some new items, the newer items that you as a board have to work through, and then some of the standard order ones towards the end. So we're going to take 17.01 after finance, then we're going to go to 18.01, which is our Marathon Health contract. We will then jump over to 10.03 and 10.04, which is our discussion around the courthouse and the annex, use of facilities, and maintenance, which would be 10.03, 10.04, 10.01, then 10.02. We will then go back to academic services and go 9.01 through 9.05. Mr. Finelli will already be here, so we will do 16.01, then finalize 9.06 and 9.10, and wrap it up with 11.1 and 11.2, which is human resources, and then we would go into our normal proceeding of public comment, board member requests, closing comments, and then adjournment.
Okay.
Did you get all that?
Wow. I got it.
Got it. Did you repeat that so we can get it
It's
correct?
actually, today we have it well documented.
You get a gold star if you keep that together right there.
Yeah.
So here we go.
Wow.
I tried to follow, but
And I
it's all
stopped.
you, Will.
I got
Me
you.
too.
So, okay, so we will move on to agenda item 6, public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment? Okay, is there anybody who would like to make public comment that are here today? Okay, now I'll close public comment, and we will move on to agenda item 7.01.
Good afternoon, Chairman Furry, board members, and Superintendent Moore. Ms. Whitmore and myself are here to answer any questions that you have on finance consent, beginning with 7.01.
Okay. So imagine charter school financials. Any questions or comments on this agenda item? No? Okay. Then we will move on to 7.02, purchase orders over $10,000. Any questions regarding these items?
Nope.
Okay. Seeing none, we will continue forward to 7.03, vendor payments. Any question on vendor payments?
Yeah, page 12. The play core, I assume that is for a new equipment for one of our playgrounds. Do we know which one that was? Just for public information. See, play core at 60,000, 61129, page 12.
Yes. That actually, I
Or what
don't
is it?
believe that's a playground. That is for Matanzas High School.
Okay.
I'll dig down into that payment and send an email to the board.
I think it's the
equipment.
canopy, right?
It's a canopy, oh, the
Yeah.
canopy in the main, the
courtyard.
main
Right.
canopy
Yeah.
courtyard that they're talking
We had to
about.
add
Yeah.
additional
Yeah, that's
seating.
great. That, I'm
Yeah.
glad to see that coming because it's been long needed.
Mm-hmm.
And that'll
Yeah,
help
right.
on the hot sunny days and rainy days.
That's for sure.
That's great, okay. Also, page 14, YKKAP, what is that? Page 65, 344,
That is part of the Matanzas project, the expansion. It's a vendor that is used for that project. Mr. Bush, do you have any information you can add to that?
It's the ODP for Windows for that project for the addition at Matanzas.
now is that coming out of general?
No, that's
No.
coming out
That's
of
coming out
impact
capital,
fees.
right?
Impact.
Okay, I just want to make sure it's coming out of capital.
Mhm.
Okay, and then the other one is page 17.
Thank you.
I realize we got Duval Ford, we have two, I assume that's purchase of vehicles.
Yes.
Is that a piggyback, or is there, how does that system work? So we have local vendors that could bid on that?
Yes, we have that, this one in particular, Do you, Mr. Freeman, do you know, is that,
It's a state contract
okay.
that we are required to use. It's with Duval Ford out of Jacksonville.
Yeah, I know Duval Ford. I'm just wondering, does like Palm Coast Ford get an opportunity to bid on that anyway, or how does that work?
They're all fleet vehicles that have to be through the government purchased through, and the person that holds that contract is Duval Ford.
Okay.
So they.
They went through the process.
Right. A
I just wanna make
local
sure we're
would not
clear
be
with
able
everybody.
to use that fleet purchase.
That's fine. I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that everybody understands, so Palm Coast Board doesn't get angry with Flagler County Schools.
Right.
Okay. All right, that's it.
Thank you.
Question. Okay, then we will move on to 7.04, deletion of inventory. Any questions on 7.04? Seeing none, we'll move to 7.05, approval of finance budget amendments.
I had a couple questions there.
Yes, please, go ahead, Dr.
Looking at, I know this is from May, but it says add funds for board outside counsel for the rest of the year,
Yeah, I think so.
54,000. Is that for May to June, end of June, or is that?
That's through June 30th.
Through June 30th?
Yes. So we had, there was 2 months that were quite large just based on services.
Okay,
that
so
were
that's
under.
catch up? That's
Yes.
not for the last 2 months?
That is to cover, I want to say, April and May bills. So the
Okay.
PO that we have right now should cover us through June 30th. We are waiting on one more bill for June.
Okay, and I saw on the district financials, we're tracking the total attorney fees. Those are
Correct.
all through May, just May?
That's through last week.
Okay.
Oh, it is through.
So does it include this, I guess that's my
Yes.
question. It includes the 54,000
So the-
is built in there somewhere?
The 54,000 budget had to be added in order for us to pay those bills. So we're still waiting on, we have all of the bills for Sniffen and Spellman. We're waiting on one more for June from Weiss and Sirota, which we should get this week.
Okay.
And then all of those legal costs will be final, and you'll see them on the next board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And then the next was the state grant one in regards to expense to add budget for the project.
I don't know the actual grant this actually is, but it
Okay.
was just a grant that we received. And so what we're doing, which one are you asking about, the 105,000?
No, the 421,000. See where I'm talking about?
Yes, let me look into that one.
Okay.
I'm not as familiar with the state grants, but
With
this
the
I'm
budget
sure
codes,
has to
okay.
do with us trying to close out those grants at year end. But let me
Okay.
look into it and I will send
I'd
send
appreciate
something
that. That'd be
forward.
great.
Absolutely.
Okay. So then we will move on to professional development travel, 7.06. If there are no questions, then we will move on. 7.07, district financial statement.
Just going back to my favorite subject, Medicare, they're obviously way behind. We're
We
coming
have-
down to, so they'll catch up at what point?
We have received, as of June 30th, we have received 2 of the 4 quarterly billings. We just received the 3rd one, I believe,
Okay.
last week. And the 4th one, I just got the email for the claim amount, and so that's being processed. We should receive that in a few weeks, and it's all backdated to June 30th.
Okay.
So it will
because
all
that
go
really
in the
has
correct
budget
fiscal year.
impact. It's a large sum of money, and
Mhm.
we want to make sure we get that in the budget.
Yeah, it's a
balance.
large process that it
It
goes
is.
through multiple people
Okay.
before it gets back to us.
Okay.
But we are definitely on track for that.
Okay, great.
Patty, the workforce development, the workforce ed performance incentive, don't often get to see an increase in what's collected in revenues to 191%. So
That,
is that CAPE?
I'm gonna ask, is Renee here?
She was,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, she's-
We did have an increase in that, and I'm gonna let Ms. Kirkland speak to that.
And I'm not sure if the workforce ed performance incentive, if that is CAPE or not.
It's not CAPE, because CAPE is K through 12, and we're,
She's trying to get her bearings of which,
Mhm.
which
I
The
am.
line.
3317,
Yeah, it's 3317, page 1, 3317.
Oh,
I had the
okay.
same question.
we got an increase
oh,
in the year.
performance incentive. Okay, that is specifically because they added the CDLA
Ah,
to that performance funding.
nice, okay.
And because we run so many classes of that per year,
Mhm.
it spiked it up.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's the kind of increase you want to see.
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Renee.
Renee.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I had the same question, but you got it.
Yeah.
Great. Excellent. So, all right, so then we will move on to 7.08, closeout of 2023 and 24 fiscal year. This
This is just for informational purposes for items that we present to the auditors. We just wanted it here approved with our finance consent for 23-24 fiscal year.
Very good. So are there any other questions for finance?
Nope.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
All right, then we'll move ahead to 17.01.
Ooh, good one. Got it.
SRD contract presented by Mr. Houlihan.
Good afternoon, Chair Furry, School Board members, Superintendent Moore. I'm here today for the business meeting that will take action at the 6 o'clock meeting regarding the SRD contract. After our information workshop with Chief Strobridge, the actual contract itself was shared with the school board members, and now it is uploaded to board docs as well. It is still in draft mode. Something that probably excited for our finance folks to share with you is that we will have an agreed amount that will be invoiced at a flat rate for when our school resource deputies are out or sick on medical leave, so that we will not be being charged an overtime rate for a road deputy that will be coming to fulfill a vacancy that is not directly related to an operational vacancy.
Excellent.
So it is a little bit easier for us to budget, and we would not have to continue to increase our budget for our SRD unit.
So, but we're still going to have overtime.
So
Or will
there will
this
be
eliminate? the need for
we will
overtime?
not be charged an overtime rate. So it doesn't matter if it's a deputy that's in his second year, or if it's a corporal or a lieutenant or a captain coming in to fulfill that vacancy. It is a flat rate.
So the flat rate of $48 an hour, basically.
It's not $48 an hour. I will. The 48 hours was for summer school.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But
was like, it's right there.
Yeah, so there's a flat rate, and that is also an agreed upon amount for athletic events as well. Just speaking with our two athletic directors, Rotary tournament, that there's a large invoice that comes to our athletic budget, and this is now will allow our athletic directors to budget that as well. So regardless if it's a vacancy during the school day, or if it's an off-duty detail for an athletic event, or any other type of event that is required for law enforcement to be present on, that we are requesting, it will be a flat rate.
Okay.
So any questions on the contract itself? Once we do have that language, Chief Strobridge is having his general counsel, his legal team to add that language in there. We will then review it, make sure that it is
Right.
the right language that we agreed upon, and then I will submit it to you, and then we'll put it back on board docs.
Tommy, do you know by chance the Safe Schools allocation?
I do. Let's see. Was it 1.3? Just roughly 1.3, 1.6?
Yeah. For some reason, I thought it was around 1.32.
Yeah.
I know.
Dan, do you binder, 1.35.
And the contract's 1.37.
At one of our last meetings, we had asked for a more granular breakdown of some of the costs outside of the personnel cost in there. Did we ever receive that yet?
No, sir. We do have actual cost of each of our individuals that are in the SRD unit and crossing guards. I do have that, but it's not an actual breakdown. It's just the cost of that personnel.
Because there were some other costs that were outside of personnel, like, just, fixed equipment,
Yeah.
things like that.
Correct. I have not received that
Okay,
yet,
they
sir.
had said they would provide that, so if you could follow up on that.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Okay, great. Any other questions? Okay, thank you. All right, so we will now move on to
Thanks, Tom.
18. Human Resources, Mr. Bob Willett, Marathon Health contract.
We do have a representative from Marathon with us
Okay.
as well. that will join us.
Chairman
Welcome.
Furry,
Welcome,
board
thank
members,
you.
Superintendent Moore. Apologize, choking on
Would you
candy.
like some water,
I was trying-
Bob?
I was trying to keep myself
I
from
haven't opened
coughing.
this one
and
yet.
I was trying to keep from coughing, and then I had a candy, and I'm like, oh, I'm next.
I'm gonna choke to death. Okay, good.
Board, this has been an ongoing process from initial idea to RFP to, acceptance of the bid to contract negotiations. We believe we're at a point now where we have a nearly 100% complete contract. We have just a couple final red line items that we were going through. Want to make sure that we put it in front of you in plenty of time for you to go ahead and take a deep dive through it before the board meeting on the 23rd. We are confident that we've captured the requirements and the spirit of what all the discussions we've had to this point regarding what would be a successful wellness center. This contract is 20 pages in length with some additions, and we are pleased to bring it forward to you today as this draft that we believe is ready for presentation to the board. I know that there are some important pieces of the puzzle to this. When we started the discussion, the key piece was, if we are going to have a wellness center, where will it be? Okay. We are at a point now where we believe the appropriate place for the wellness center will be the Racquet Club building. Okay. We believe that the minimum requirements of the wellness center at 1,500 square feet is the current site at the Racquet Club is more than adequate. Actually, there's room for growth there, but we are looking at a budget within the contract for just that 1,500 square foot. So we're not going to build over capacity at this point. We're going to build to what we think will be our initial need, and with a positive outlook and growth, we may use that whole space at some point. We also spoke when we had these discussions about what would be a cost savings. Would it be a cost savings to look at our operations folks, and could they do some of the things here at a cheaper cost? We put both groups together, Marathon and Everside builders and our operations folks, and we came to determine that just based on how the current contracting system is, and the efficiency that would be involved in one contract instead of another RFP through our operations folks to have to go out and get multiple subcontractors, that Everside would be able to do it at a cheaper cost and in a more efficient manner than what our operations folks could do as far as their contracting process. We have all the faith in our folks that they could get it done, but the constraints legally as far as contracts and things like that made the efficiency and the cost savings reside more with Marathon. So that's included also in here in the contract and the exhibits in the back. We also feel comfortable with the fact that on the other side of this, within a 6 to 8 month timeframe, we would be at a place where we are ready to open.
Okay.
Okay, and so I guess I have Ms. Shannon Mason here from Marathon, Everside, and she is absolutely here to kind of help us with any questions that you may have.
So is opening day the same as staffing day?
Staffing day, and I would kind of defer to Shannon. I believe staffing day is the day that we actually hire and begin our staff, and there's a training portion to that prior to where we would have like a ribbon cutting and an official opening.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the flat fee of the 51,000 a month, that begins after ribbon cutting?
Correct, when the doors open.
Okay. And I think I've shared before, and it's no reflection of your company at all, but I'm just not 100% sold on this idea, because we've gone down this road and similar roads before, not with our own clinic, completely our own clinic, but shared kind of clinic services, if you will. How are we going to track whether or not this is the best use of our dollars? So for example, if it's $51,000 a month, what metrics are we going to look at each month to say, this is a good idea, this is beneficial financially, people are utilizing it, and it's going to drive down our rates? Because ultimately, the whole reason we're doing this is in the hopes that it's going to drive the rates down. So what kind of monthly metrics are we going to be looking at to say, financially, this makes sense for us?
Would you like me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the standard reporting packages will include very detailed utilization reports, and you can drill down to the type of visits even that they're using. Unique members is often a key metric that are used. We'd be working in tandem, of course, with your benefits consultants at Brown & Brown as well. And we would be looking for all those different categories of usage, and particularly when individuals come in and get maybe a physical done or health risk assessment done, and we're capturing new or unique members who maybe didn't know they had a chronic condition in the past, and then we start managing them, and they're coming back routinely getting medications and having their labs tracked and interacting with the nurse and the nutritional coaches. Every single one of those has different metrics that can be compared against your health plan as well, to see what those differences are that you're achieving by having your health center and how that ROI is populated.
So is there a way to quantify that financially? Is there a formula or some way to quantify those metrics to say we're getting a good bang for our buck, basically?
Well, in the initial stages, your committee had us do, and your consultants worked with us here too, to populate the return on investment reports. And they asked us particularly to be the most conservative in any assumptions that we could be, using whatever the benchmark was that would be a normal, usual school district like yourselves, and what the usage would be between employees and their spouses and dependents, but asked us to lower those even less by about 10% to try to be very, very conservative. And then those return on investment opportunity was given back to the committee and everyone here to show, what the anticipated break-even point is, and then where you're going to start exceeding your return on investment over time. Right. And that will just continue to grow. There's different metrics to it as well. There's going to capture individuals who have never or haven't been to a provider in a very, very long time. So that wouldn't even show up in your health plan data. Okay. And then you're going to have a number of individuals that are using your health plan quite a bit, but now are choosing alternatively to use the health center. Okay. And that'll be one-to-one direct replacement cost.
And so this doesn't preclude, or does it? I don't believe it does. This doesn't preclude employees from continuing to use their primary doctor right now.
No, and there's a very large percentage of our current staff that don't have a primary
right,
care
which
physician.
Is one of the arguments for this.
Yeah, which is one of the push for that, and folks with the cost savings through the pharmaceuticals that would be available on site, okay. And return visits through that. I mean, all these are part of the discussions we've had as far as it's all about how we get buy-in. You know,
Well,
it's
that
all-
was gonna be,
it's-
so the
it's-
last two
that's-
questions that I had was, one, how are we gonna educate folks? Because
Yeah.
if they're not using it, it's not
Yeah.
gonna do what it's intended to do. And then second, it also doesn't preclude people from going to like an urgent care. But we would hope that, why go to an urgent care when you, right? It's the same-
Yes,
Okay.
and that's all part of the next step that actually Shannon and I have been talking about with both of our teams, is that in the very near future, we want to also come to you with exactly what our plan is to go ahead and market and advertise, and from soup to nuts, what our plan is, and then how that compares to, her other clients. The wealth of the information they have of all the folks that they've used in the past to get them to a startup point. We're absolutely going to tap into that, because I think everyone here at the table agrees that, how this is launched and how well it's marketed. And you can have the best marketing in the world, but how well it's staffed is going to be the key.
And the 52,000 covers, that covers the staff, that covers operations, that, right?
Yes.
Yep, that's the ongoing management fees, and we even cover, obviously, there's going to be time when staff is out, either
Right.
on a scheduled, planned time off or unscheduled planned time off, and that covers that
Okay,
expense too.
Okay.
Something I did want to touch on briefly, a part of this is also bringing on certain occupational aspects of it as it relates to like pre-employment drug screens. So as we look at trying to garner interest in this health center and how important that is to drive utilization, what we are going to be able to do with doing our pre-employment drug screens here is all new employees to the district are going to be coming through this wellness center, giving them the introduction immediately, so that on the back end, when we're having our onboarding and our orientation stating, hey, as a part of our benefits packages, you do have this health center that's available to you, and you all experienced this, essentially day one when you got your pre-employment drug screen. So that's something that we are definitely very much excited about, because we're already looking at driving that engagement from day one.
Okay, good.
I was just going through your contract, and I see you have the Live Better and Level Up additions. Now, is that in addition to the 51,000? How's that
Yes,
work?
yes, those are optional add-on services that had been offered to you through the request for a proposal process, and they're the most sought-after optional items. And you're absolutely right, that was an exhibit, let me see.
Write that down.
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah, continue,
Or
there's two of them
19.
there, right. And
Yes.
So if we want that for our employees, we would pay those additions.
You would.
In addition to the 51,000.
You would, and you
Okay.
can decide if you want them on day one,
See
when the
how it
doors
goes at
open,
first.
or
Yeah.
if you want to wait 6 months or 8 months or a year, you get to make that, that ultimate decision, because they're corporate staff members for us, and the implementation process is like 30 days or so.
Okay.
The Live Better is the most sought after one, actually, because everyone's looking for some behavioral health therapy for individuals, and it's for ages 12 years old and up, unlimited virtual mental health therapy of 50-minute in length.
Okay.
And it can be done telephonic or through the video virtual. And the nutritional counseling is for those individuals who need it, and they'd have a referral made by the provider. And that is a ongoing nutritional counseling that goes by registered dietitian and nutritionist.
So if one person uses it, we pay that amount. If 10 people use it, we pay the same amount, correct?
Well,
Or is it- what's the deal?
all members have eligibility to it. So unfortunately, it does not have a electable scenario.
all.
So it's for everyone, but
Okay,
it's
I just-
including
I wanna make
spouses,
sure.
independents
No, I just want to
too.
make sure, I want to make sure we
Yeah,
have that.
yes.
If we decide to go that route, that it's everybody, not just.
Anybody that you would send me on your eligibility file.
And it's
Yeah.
virtual.
And it's all virtual.
Virtual, yeah.
Yes.
That doesn't surprise me.
But it's unlimited virtual sessions of counseling. And you can choose it, or you can just, it just sits there as an optional service.
Well, that
for
would be
you.
another one that would be good to track,
Oh,
to see
yeah,
what
absolutely,
usage
because
is.
you can
on
see
a
where
monthly
it
basis, yeah.
it could be a cost saver in the future.
Is the onsite more expensive?
It is because you're staffing for a actual provider, and then you have their benefits load and all
Okay.
the various items included. The WorkSafe is also in that section
Yeah.
too, you noticed, and that is what is supplying the drug screens, pre-employment or post-accident random. It's also supplying your bus driver physicals, your first report of injury. If someone did happen to have a non-emergent type scenario, they needed to come in. And there's no additional cost for those items. It's just the cost of whatever the lab would be that is processed for that type of service.
Now, if you do the drug tests for a new employee, that's covered, even though they're not on our,
Yes, they're allowed to see that provider in there, and
okay,
then we
so
would
that'll be
run the
covered.
lab
So we don't
through.
have to pay an additional amount for that.
The cost of the actual lab that is processed is a cost, but I believe we all talked about that, and it was quite a savings versus
Yeah, it would be,
what
and that's
what
why
you
I'm
have right
asking.
now.
It is,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
That's good. The only other thing I have is, what's our time frame on this? What are we looking at now so far? What do you
Well,
got, Bob?
our timeframe is, if this is approved by the board in the July board meeting, we are, once that is to effect, the contract is enforceable, and then we move forward with a 6 to 8 month.
Yes,
build up, yeah.
absolutely. We see no reason based on the fact that you have your space, and we're doing everything simultaneously in the implementation process. From what Bob and Josh have shared, soup to nuts, we're building out, we're recruiting for the staffing, we're doing eligibility and data files, we're coming up with an entire marketing plan surrounding this, and working continuously throughout that 5 to 6 month process to get you to doors open.
So possibly January, February, March, start of the new school, new year rather. Are we going to be capable of getting that building ready in that time frame? That's a huge question and financial question. Do we have the money to do it?
Well, that's part of the operational initial build-out cost that, was actually part of the RFP, the bid. So they will begin, immediately after the sign the
Signed,
contract.
so that's
And-
talking, because that has to be cleared out, all the stuff that's in there, and then build up to meet the needs of the health center. Access is somewhat, that building's not particularly easily accessible. I don't know if that's something we're gonna have to look at, because where you park and how you get to the
Well, just even
actual door.
signage to get there.
Well, yeah, that too, that too. It's always been hard to find that location, but to verbally and mobility-wise, to get into the building, it's not right there. You can't park right in front and walk in.
Yeah.
You have to park away and walk in. So these are certain things we might need to relook at and evaluate also in the future.
It does have like ADA compliance already, because we were operating it as a health club, so.
Yeah.
So it should have the acceptable access to the bathrooms and things like that.
Well, that won't be redone. That won't be a problem. I'm talking about outside, where the how the parking lot's set up, it's not easy for that. It's not easy to get in either one of the buildings technically. So it's something we're gonna have to
Okay.
look at.
With the build-out, so just to understand that better, so you were saying it was better to have Marathon do the build-out within their organization, because they can move it a little faster than us, because we would have to put it out for multiple bids, and it would just take longer to break ground. That was the main reason?
That's a large part of the reason, as far as the build-out. I actually, when we put both folks together, as far as our operations folks, their square footage costs were pretty much the same. The problem is it would be treated as an operations piece, as a special new project for build, whereas if it exists in this contract, then signing of this contract moves their organization's building department forward
And we
immediately.
look at just workload, if we are to go into the courthouse, looking at the management of those two projects in that way, that it was the best choice based on the numbers to allow it to be a part of the contract.
Okay, and there was a budget out that we set within the, when we approved this for build-out and everything, and we're well within that?
We are at the top end of that. And the low end of the build-out was within the range of what we were looking for as a site. So for example, when they looked at the very low end of the build out, at the 300,000, that was at an existing storefront operation that we didn't own. That used to be a doctor's office or a dentist's office that would have only required, a group of painters to walk in, and then we could hang our shingle on it. This is more involved in that because it's our own site and it's a raw site with a shell. So the build cost is more expensive. However, over the long term, we won't be paying rent to a storefront.
But to his question is within the range that was set, it's just on the higher end
Yes.
of that range, yes.
Okay.
And what was the higher end? Do we know?
It's on here, the
450.
build out is 450.
450?
450 is what the build out is right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
That's not
And
that cheap,
Well,
actually.
I know there's still more to be drawn out here, but is it the idea that that it would be right at that main entrance where you would come in and check in before for membership and everything? Okay, so that would be kind of the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and and we'll have visuals on
Okay,
that
yeah.
as we progress through with Shannon.
One thing that's important is, as we've all said, buy-in is so important, and this has to be something that's inviting. It has to be a comfortable place to be, not institutional. So, we want them to walk in feeling like, hey, I'm walking into one of the nicest doctor's office that we can afford to build out at the end of the day. But it should be very inviting, bright, and comfortable. And, as we're building buy-in, we might be, from the marketing component, is that where we're having milestones is sent out to the insurance, those that are on our insurance plan, say, hey, we met a milestone. Your health center is on its way, and get them excited for that ribbon cutting, because, we need to reach that critical 30%. I believe that was our number to say, hey, this is on the conservative side of viability. So we need to get there as quickly as possible. So if we just keep our minds there, that would be great. So,
Hey, Chair Furry, can I comment on something with that?
sure.
So Bob, I don't know if you can speak to, to that point, I've been pretty vocal about my not so great experience so far with our medical program. And, just even the other day, I went, got up at 6 in the morning to get my labs drawn, and at Advent Health, where I always go, and I was informed they could no longer do my labs there, that I had to go somewhere else, and it was the morning, and I was frustrated, and it feels like every time I've called the back of the card, I've got kind of a semi-trained person who gives me bad information because they're kind of winging it. And my big concern is the employee/patient experience. And so just like Chair Furry was saying, we want this to be well utilized. We also want this to be a key component of, I think, recruitment and retention. So I guess my question is, who within the district is kind of overseeing that experience component? Are there surveys? Do employees know if there's a feedback place where they can kind of share the good and the bad of what this new wellness center is proving to be for them and their family?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of the initial, that was another part of my discussion this morning with Shannon when we were in preparation to come here, is that, this first hurdle of, working through the contract is not even, the beginning of the beginning. It's what we really have to do at this point is come to you with a fully fleshed out marketing plan that will include surveys. I have a person that's down in HR with me, dedicated to solely working with Marathon to make sure that we have all the parts of our marketing plan in place and ready to share with you guys as soon as we get the contract moving forward.
Yeah, it'd almost be nice. Sorry, Sally. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just, sorry, Chair Furry. I think, just again, in the comments that I have made on this topic, I really am so hopeful that this is, I know we talk a lot about cost savings, and of course that's so important, but I'm one of those families who's been on this plan, and I care about our employees, and I really am hopeful that this is going to be that easy button for this huge piece of everybody's life, their healthcare. And so yeah, in addition to the cost savings, but that's just really, really important. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're on top of that, Bob.
Yeah. And just to speak anecdotally, I can actually, I agree with you. Things like drawing blood and things that we can move over to the clinic where it's our folks, seeing basically our folks. Anytime we can cut out a middleman, even if they're choosing, to get blood drawn for an outside, their outside physician, would still be, better to, if any of us have been to any of the local or national chains on blood draws and things like that, if we can, push our usage based on positive experiences, and that's the bottom line. We go where we've had a positive experience. Right now, all of us could probably think back in our mind one fast food chain or restaurant that as a family we no longer go to because of a bad experience. And what we want to be is the positive experience that drives it to it. And so everything that Ms. Hunt just said as far as surveys and being on top of what the pulse is of our folks is going to have to be how this works or it won't work.
Mm-hmm. And out in the ramp up to, there's always going to be some bumps in the road when you're starting something new. So I think it'll be important to have sort of a designated health center advocate that's designated to resolve issues that sometimes they could be misunderstandings. It could just be something they didn't understand. Just an easy person that somebody could cut through bureaucracy or waiting on hold or something like that, just to get in the event that those arise. Because it's just like anything, when a restaurant opens, if they get a bunch of bad reviews on Yelp, all of a sudden, it doesn't look good. So we want to make sure we address those beforehand.
And absolutely, and we have at this point designated Lynn Caruso down in our office, who has extensive past HR experience out of state, to be our point of contact for all things wellness in our healthcare center. So that's really
great
where we're headed.
I have a question. This is a 3-year contract. So in my life, it takes 3 years generally to build anything. Okay, you get a slow start and you get your feet wet and you start going into it. By year 3, you're usually going to see what's going to work or not. And this works. Say it works or it doesn't. If it doesn't, we both end the contract. That's not a big deal.
Well,
If it does work, my concern is what kind of protection do we have that price isn't inflated the next contract to it could be doubled. You could say, okay, we've got them now, boom, let's hook them. So where are we at on that? Just explain it for us, please.
Okay, what I understand is that you're interested in a 3-year agreement, and so that's why we offered that. It does have normal inflators inside the agreement, which is just for medical trend and so forth. Those inflators are set at 5%. So you could expect that at the end of the 3 years, another, it offers you a 1-year renewal after that. You could then ask to just get locked in again to another 3 years, even though the statement of the term of the agreement right now says that it becomes 1 year auto renewing after that. It might be at your best interest later to ask for another multi-year agreement.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure we were.
And there is competition out there in this marketplace, right, that are offering these services. So you also have to be competitive with your, right? But the one thing we do have to consider, though, that a change could be very messy, because these doctors and medical staff, they're employees of Marathon, right? So therefore, if we changed, we would have a whole new set of doctors, new relationships. So
yeah, I agree.
that is something that just keep in the back of our mind.
So just as we talk about the term, one of the things that I would like to see amended and considered by the board at least, over the years, we have seen this board get caught with automatic renewals. I would like the automatic renewal to be out. That there is no automatic renewal. It comes back before the board for approval and renewal. It's not just an automatic based on a date. That has come back to bite us a few occasions, and it's human nature where it could be missed or not missed. So I would recommend that the automatic renewal is taken out. And then the other question that I had, and maybe this is for our attorney, if there is a termination, which of course nobody wants to think like that, but you have to think about those things.
Yeah.
If there is a, Mr. Delaney, if there is a termination of the contract at the end of the 3 years, is it built in here that we retain, all medical records, that basically, because we may go with another provider, if we were to go with another provider, that Marathon's just not walking away with all of the medical records of the clients?
Sure, I'm gonna have to take a closer look.
Okay. Because that would just kind of be a concern.
Yeah, and the records, but also the statistics, the data, the matrix that we're going to be using to assess what was good, what was bad. All that data should be, we should own that data.
And you do.
Okay.
Yes, I mean, to answer your question, you own the data, you own all the equipment and the supplies, and furnishings and anything that is in the four walls of your center. So data included is all a part of that.
And
I
the
mean,
patient information.
Yes, within the HIPAA protection law,
Right, of
though.
course,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
Okay, so that would be just something to confirm, Mr. Delaney I think that would be helpful. And then the other question that I had was, the $52,000, is that coming out of our self-insurance fund?
Yes.
Okay, I thought so. The reconstruction, or the
The
build-out,
build-out.
is that coming out of our self-insurance fund, not our,
Yes.
part of our capital plan?
No.
Okay, great.
Good.
Those are good answers.
That's good, they're good
That's
answers.
what I was hoping for.
We're running low, so they're very good answers. The only other question that I have is, has this contract been reviewed by our legal?
Yes, this is, I can't even, countless times, it's been redlined back and forth through Sniffen and Spellman.
Okay.
I was actually on the phone with Mitchell from Sniffen and Spellman
Okay.
this morning and
Because that's
last
crucial.
evening.
They should have our best interest at heart.
Yeah.
Because it's very detailed, it's a long contract, to make sure that we're protected.
Yes, and now Mr. Delaney will have that. We didn't have him looped in on the back and forth just
That's
because
fine,
we
so
didn't
he
want
can look at it by the
Yes, but
23rd.
now Mr. Delaney is looped in.
Okay,
Okay, so is he part of, I always get this confused.
No, he's Weiss Road.
he's wasted the road.
Yeah, so there's work that we had to do as a district,
District.
working through it.
Okay.
He's the
And
board.
then he
So,
is-
Mr. Delaney, prior to it coming to the board for approval,
Yes.
you will have an
23rd.
opportunity to go through this
Yeah,
and review?
on the 23rd, right?
Okay, great.
Thank you.
That was the only major concern or change that I wanted to recommend, was the automatic renewal.
Yeah, that makes sense, that really makes, because first of all, these people change constantly too. So, 3 years from now, you could have a whole different group. So the point
You
is,
just don't wanna be caught off guard.
right,
Yeah.
so let's see what happens.
And I think just for the sake of transparency, Marathon, they do recommend a 5-year. It was because of conversations that came from this board that we went for the,
Yeah.
after the 3. So
think
they
that's
came
smart.
back
See how it
with
goes.
3 with the renewal.
Right.
So we'll go, and that'll go back and forth between the attorneys,
No,
and then the
that's good.
attorneys will, then, they'll.
No, that's
It
good.
just means it's not a blind renewal, it
Yes.
means
They'll
it'll
look at
come
it,
back
yes.
before
They'll
the
have to
board for
review
renew,
it.
and an opportunity to review the data and the metrics and all the rest of
I
it.
just wanted you to know that
No,
was
that's
their
all.
recommendation was 5. and
Gotcha.
that was ours,
That's
where
good.
the 3
That's
was,
good.
yes.
Good job.
Good.
All right, any other questions on this agenda item?
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we are going to now move to operational services, and first up is the Historical Society proposal for the Flagler Courthouse.
10.04.
Mr. Fisk.
10.03.
10.03 under 10, operational services,
Yep.
yes.
Yes, we're gonna start off with the Historical Society and then go into.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. My sincerest apologies for being delayed in getting here.
No, you're fine.
Welcome.
No worries.
I'm James Fisk, and it was brought to my attention after your workshop last month that I needed to get in touch with Mr. Freeman and then come up with a plan to present to the school board. So I immediately got in touch with the president of the Flagler County Historical Society, Ed Sharkovitz, who's with us this evening, And he put the plan together, and I would like for him to make the presentation.
Great.
Very good.
Welcome.
Appreciate the time and the invitation that you extended to us to talk about this. The Flagler County Historical Society has been around since 1983. We celebrated our 40th year last year. We're an all-volunteer organization since our very inception. Our officers, board of directors, governance committee, our docents, our tour guides, all of us are volunteers. We're in love with Flagler County history. The history of Flagler County extends far back beyond the ITT experience of the early 1970s. In archaic times, we had woolly mammoths, mastodon, saber-toothed tigers, and armadillo was the size of Volkswagen Beetles walking around here. We have had indigenous populations dating back 15,000 years, first Spanish, second Spanish, British colonial periods, Civil War, Seminole War, Revolutionary War history, all happening on Flagler County property. When I was in school, history was dull and boring. It was all about names and dates and memorization. All of us in the Historical Society are focused on telling the life stories, the survival skills of the people that made it here, and turning that into educational experiences for children and their parents and families so that they can frame their vision of their present and their future. That's our whole goal with the educational process of the Historical Society. Our main location is at the Holden House Museum and the Cisco Dean Research Library, which is behind it, right across the street from the historic Flagler County Courthouse. We've been there since 1983. If we could we roll up to the next page? Would that be possible? Yeah, thank you so much. We exist through an MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding with Flagler County. We are the largest holder of archived Flagler County records, tax receipts, water bills, anything that you can imagine that would be important to a genealogist or to somebody doing family research or research on the county. We are the ones that hold all of that. Our funding comes primarily through a grant through the Tourism Office, the TDC. We also have grant writers that have come on board that are going after state and federal grants to fund us. Then we have memberships, and then we also have private donors that provide us with funding. The reason why myself, Mr. Fisk, everybody in the Historical Society does all of this stuff as a volunteer for free is because we see that there is a need in this current generation of youth for information that they may not be getting from their elderly family members. And we want to provide an additional opportunity of education with history, with life skills, survival skills, where they may not be getting that at home. That's our biggest goal. As far as the courthouse goes, if we could scroll down just a little bit more, that'd be awesome. So we first became aware of the fact that the building was going to become vacant in May of 2025, and we were asked by one of the Flagler County Commissioners, Leanne Pennington, to write a proposal plan to the county of what we would do with the 60,000 square feet as far as a history education center. And we were horrified when we discovered that plan was moved up a year because we were just nowhere near ready for it, to try and squeeze 2 years of preparation into 1 year of preparation. However, we rose to the occasion and everybody did a great job in our organization for doing that. One of our preparation steps was to take a 54-passenger tour bus from the new courthouse here down to the 1908 Bartow Courthouse, which is the site of the Polk History Center. They have had a restored courthouse with an educational program and plan with the school district, with the county, since 1993, and it has been a tremendous model of success. So with Flagler County's elected officials, City of Benell elected officials, administrative employees, and the heads of Flagler County's 15 history groups, both brick and mortar and non-brick and mortar, we drove the 3.5 hours down there. We spent 5-6 hours touring the facility, and then everybody got a questionnaire on the bus on the way back home to talk about what they learned, and we took all that information and applied it to the square footage of the courthouse. Thank you. If you could scroll down a little bit. Thank you. As we wrote the plan and presented it to the county, Heidi Petito and some of the Flagler County commissioners were very excited about it. We moved forward with bringing on additional volunteer staff to include Dr. Diane Kemp, who's responsible for putting together the Lake County Courthouse Museum. She did it from A to Z, including grant funding and exhibit space. We brought in Dr. Stephen Bitgood, who is a PhD in psychology. He has written 8 books about putting together timelines onto floor plans and also exhibits, with educational quality being the highest commitment. And then Dr. Elaine Studnicki, who I believe many of you might know. She is former president of the Palm Coast Historical Society and Museum. She is also the past historian for the city of Palm Coast. She has now become our official grant writer, and she's already got 2 grants applied for under her belt in the last 2 to 3 weeks. Upon learning that there was a pending lease between the school board and the county, we were a little bit dismayed, but because we always rise to the occasion, we were excited that all of you were on the verge of signing that contract, because our biggest concern for the building was longevity. As you know, and as everybody in the room knows, there's stories and what-ifs and potential situations that are always flying around. And our biggest concern was that the building would be raised for either a parking lot or the next Dollar General that was going to come into Flagler County, and we certainly didn't want to see that. So knowing that, that the school board, which of course is long established in the past and into the future, is going to be spearheading the occupation of the building, that's awesome. We're thrilled with that. A month ago, was it a month ago that you had a conversation with some members of the school board?
Yes.
Somewhere in there. We learned that there may be 7 rooms along the front of the building on the first floor that you all may not be utilizing. So we modified our 60,000 square foot plan into a 7-room plan, and I've got it listed on the next page. The red box, if you can take a look at it on your plan there, is the space that I believe was discussed. And we've written up a list of potential exhibits that could go over there that would continue augmenting our relationship with Flagler County and talking about Flagler County history, and then also supporting what the school board's position is, which is educating Flagler County students. So I'm not going to read each paragraph. It'll take some time, but I'll go ahead and go through the list. If we could go back up to number 1, that'd be great. So starting with an area for a timeline of Flagler County history, again, starting with saber-tooth tigers and ending with ITT. A history of the courthouse itself, a tremendous history right there. Not only in that building, but in the 2-story building that's over by the railroad tracks. We've got some landmark court cases that are very socially important and significant, that are surprises for the relationship of people and also different races in the county at unexpected periods of time. History of Bunnell and the county. History of the future farmers of America and Flagler County agriculture. Since the early teens, 1913, 1912, we've got some families that have moved into the area that have been growing all kinds of cash crops here, and those are important stories to tell. History of the Flagler County schools. We have had access to the Little Red Schoolhouse Museum that was put together by our past president, Diane Marquis, who passed away about 2.5 years ago. And sitting in boxes and file cabinets over there are Flagler County school records dating to 1900 and a little bit before that. Those are all stories, and those are all records and information that should really be digitized and accessible to whoever's doing research. And again, talking about how the Flagler County school system evolved and how students all came together with education from one-room schoolhouses positioned throughout the county to what we are today. Our senior historian, Cisco Dean, unfortunately, who passed away last year, was one of this area's largest genealogical researchers. We recently inherited his genealogical database. It contains over 350,000 names that are associated and affiliated with Flagler County. 2 of our board members, Ashley Gonzalez and also Tanya Gordon, who's also a Bunnell City Commissioner, are professional genealogists, and they work with the Flagler County Genealogical Society as well as with national organizations. They would love to see some kind of genealogical research library go in there. Flagler County and Bunnell in the early 1900s was a hotbed of 19th Amendment activity, which was the amendment that granted women the right to vote. In Bunnell, we had a champion whose name was Alice Scott Abbott. She moved here from Missouri, and single-handedly, as both a local, regional, and national speaker for women's voting rights, she enlisted and enrolled 250 Flagler County women onto the voter rolls, 55 of whom were African American. During some extremely difficult social pressure times, she moved forward and got these women the right to vote. In 2020, Governor Ron DeSantis nominated her and also installed her as a woman in the State of Florida Women's Hall of Fame. With her story, with her activity, with all the actions that have taken place by the American Association of University Women, the Flagler Association of Women, we would love to see a Florida Women's Voting Rights Museum be established in the county. The church that Alice Scott Abbott was the music director for sits in Espanola now. It started off in Bunnell. We've been trying to get a hold of that. It's been in, not escrow, what's the other word for when somebody passes away and things are on hold?
Abatement.
Thank you, probate.
Probate.
Yeah.
So that building has been in probate for 3.5 years, and it's getting beaten up by storms and tornadoes. But we want to establish that museum. Other potential things that we could put into the space of those 7 rooms over there would be a veterans museum. We have so many stories of people that have served, put their life on the line, lost their lives during a time of war, that could also be something that gets put in. We really don't know what fits over there because we don't have a good working knowledge of those 7 rooms, how much wall space there is versus windows versus floor space versus how the displays would all work. So this is all hypothetical, but this is what's floating on our minds about how the space could be used. As far as a collaboration between the Historical Society and the school board, education is our primary role. James Fisk here has several $1,000s worth of clothing, historical interpretation things. He is out at different functions. We have many historians and reenactors that love interacting with kids. Our preservation specialist, Preston Zepp, he's a former Army Ranger. He has restored a sewing machine, sewed his own reenactment clothing, and he goes out and he educates kids about carpentry of the early and mid-1700s. At an event at the Ag Museum, Northern Flagler County, he once had 175 kids online waiting to get onto the other end of a 2-person saw, and none of those kids had their cell phones out. They're all in their pockets, and they're standing there critiquing one another, can't wait to get onto the other end of the saw to see what it was like. So that kind of stuff, immersive history education, is what we're really excited about. And of course that can happen at any time. It doesn't have to happen inside the courthouse, but if potentially we would be sharing floor space, we would love to sit down and have conversations with each of you about how that might work. Historically, we have been the source of students getting their volunteer hours. So we've had Matanzas FPC students come in and do scanning, do research for us, and file and things like that, so they can get their hours, requirements for graduation. The same with Daytona State College, and those are all things that we're open to. Security is one of our biggest concerns, obviously, with the time that we're in, and that's going to be up to you to decide. We certainly don't foresee what we plan on putting in those rooms as being an open door policy where the public can just walk in and out. I don't think that's a great idea at all. Our thinking is that if we establish it the same way that we work when we go to do a tour of the Little Red Schoolhouse Museum, where all the potential guests are going to come on the tour, they know they have to bring their license, they know that they can't have certain things in their background, and everybody gets a background check before they're allowed in. Otherwise, access is restricted. So again, that would be something that we need to work and agree to with what it is that you were thinking about. But this is an overview of what we're thinking about. We think that coming together to promote history, the lessons that come with it, is just going to enrich and deepen the lives of students, their families, and the rest of the county. So many people think of history locally as St. Augustine because they've got the buildings and the streets, but Flagler County has been the agricultural breadbasket of this part of Florida, dating back to indigenous times and especially in the 1500s forward. So I would welcome any questions or comments or concerns or discussions that you might have at this point.
Well, I'll start with comments. We toured together the old courthouse, and I had the vision that, and I know I think my colleagues did too, the front of that building could be utilized, because I firmly believe the Historical Society is education. We need to keep our people in this community educated on what it's about, or we lose who we really are. And I don't really see the necessity with the space that is there to utilize that space for the district. And I would firmly support having you take over the front of that building. I certainly could work out the entryway, because that's there. We know how that works. We could figure it out just like we do all our other entries. But one of the biggest concerns that would fall on your lap is there's 2 very large vaults there. I don't know what you can do with them. You know, I don't think you can take them, I don't think you could structurally remove them because of the size and the thickness of the walls. You know, I don't know how you would, I mean, would you have the capability of renovating to meet your needs? Because you couldn't, the way it's laid out right now, I don't think you could use it very much. Okay? You would need to do some kind of renovation. So that's something else that we'd have to think about.
So we've spoken about that, and areas like, we wouldn't want to change the floor plan of a historic building.
Yeah, no. Right.
The building, we're trying to get onto the National Register of Historic Places, and there's certain things that have to remain the same from the time that the building was built. So because of the space that we have, we're incredibly resourceful in using what we have to work with. Okay. So vault space could be used for storage, for example. It doesn't have to be exhibit space, but it could be used for storage. Unfortunately, a part of the history of the 19th Amendment and women getting the right to vote, many of these women were jailed under very adverse conditions. And I've spoken with Kim Medley, who's written a book about women's voting rights here locally and then also across the nation. And you know, exhibits can be visually impactful by using vault space to demonstrate the struggle that women went through to secure the right to vote, which should have been guaranteed in our Constitution, but it was withheld for some.
And the jail cells are still there.
For some people, and then the jails, you know, so really having a better visualization of what, and I've been through there once, but this was last year, and as my hair has gotten lighter and now thinner, sometimes details escape me, but I think walking through the area with members of the school board or whomever, and working back and forth, we could put something together that would be effective, space effective, impactful. The 2 people that we brought on board, Dr. Camp and Dr. Bickgood, they have done this already. You know, we're kind of on the beginning cusp of starting something new like this. We've just been good stewards of work that's happened over the last 41 years here in the county. And again, putting our minds together, making sure that it's effective, that it's something that the school board wants on their premises, and that you know, there's going to be a panel of people that are from diverse cultural backgrounds to make sure that everything tells a good story, proper story. Nobody's going to get offended, but yet history is accurate and it's not altered. Is something that would be a work in progress. And I believe you were going to say something.
Yeah, you had mentioned you had 7 different rooms, and the vaults, I think, are counted as one of those rooms in the 7 different areas.
Okay.
My concern is with security for the programs that we're going to be putting in there. And if we isolated those 7 rooms on the front, there is an egress issue that would just give us one point of egress coming out of the building, because you'd have to be able to egress coming from the backside of that. So that is a concern that I have, is with the security of isolating those 7 rooms to the front, where, you know, you couldn't get into the building even after that, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm not as worried about that, because I think there's solutions to that, and our schools have people coming in and out of them all the time. So I think it's a matter of just being creative and coming up with a solution. I would,
If I may for just a second, I mean, it's my understanding that the historic portion really just can't be touched at all. So I think, Dave, if that's you talking, I mean, how easy is it for us to find out if we could even make the modifications needed to secure it as we would need to?
We have had discussions with the county, and they have told us that we would be able to put, to create basically a wall, to create a lobby for the front entrance. So when you come in, there's a wall with a door, with somebody sitting behind the window that could buzz somebody through the door and then get access to the main building.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a reception area really right
There
there.
is a reception area there, and I mean, we would have to do that, and that was one of the things that we approached them about, that we would need to. We would have to put up some type of, storefront.
And I know that the next section is really around how the district intends to use the space. And, I want us to be great partners, but I think first and foremost, we have to look at what is the space, why did we begin this conversation, what is the space slated to be used at, and then within that, how can we be partners with the Historical Society in whatever way that we can be, while also making sure that we maintain the things that we need to maintain for it to be a site where our students are going to be.
I'll say this, I think number one, I'm thrilled that we're going to be utilizing it because it is a historical building. It's got so much history, just as the school district, utilizing it and making sure it's maintained by a county entity and it's going to be used, right? So I love the idea of that. The idea of, and it's a large building. I mean, when we walk through that is a large building, and I know we're going to be hearing about what the district is kind of thinking as far as space is concerned. But I cannot imagine that we can't carve out some space to be, again, a good community partner. But I really view this as a very educational piece. You're looking at hands-on learning. You're looking at basically, we are now a county where the majority of people who are here are new. Whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, maybe even 20 years. But the majority of folks that are here now don't know the history of the county. They don't know the history of this community. So I see it playing so many roles as being an intergenerational opportunity for our students to learn from our, the volunteers and just from community members. I see hopefully maybe a financial share with grant writing opportunities that may help with offset some of the costs of the building that we wouldn't have access to. So I could see that being a win-win. But really, the idea that, to me, it is an educational component for the school district, and where you could have field trips and all the rest of it. As far as the security is concerned, even depending on what volunteers you have and when you have them, when the museum is not in use, lock those things down, and then when it is in use, you have volunteers. People can't just come and go in and out. So the security piece does not concern me as much, only because, again, we have people in the community coming and going in our schools every single day. And so I have a pretty strong feeling this creative group can figure it out.
Well, can Dave speak to that? Can we hear like a real world scenario that could prove to be a conflict as it relates to safety and security?
I think what we ought to do is go through what our proposal is for the courthouse and how we see those rooms. There are some areas that we have as common area that potentially we could, allow, the Historical Society to use.
Because you got to keep in mind too, right? We're not having one program in this building. We're talking about having multiple programs in this building with multiple different kinds of people coming and going and in and out. It's not just like a school. I mean, it's just not. And you're going to have adult learners in there. young learners in there. I mean, so I think we need to think about security in a very creative, non-traditional way. Obviously, that's
Well,
most
security
important.
is one part, no doubt.
Right.
But again, we have to go back to the priority of why we started this conversation to begin with. It was to move these programs, as you mentioned, in there. And these programs have to be able to function as they are now, and they also have to be able to function into the future. And so we have to be careful about how we allocate the square footage, especially out of the gate. Now, I think this was a wonderful proposal. I think it's a bit ambitious at this moment, personally, based on some of the other information I've already seen that we're going to discuss in 10.04. But it's undeniable that this is an educational component, and the Historical Society is a value to this community, and Flagler Schools can be a partner there. But we have to find a balance out of the gate, and the reality is there's a timing for everything. So many of these things that you've proposed today, maybe this is a phased over time, right? Maybe it starts somewhere in this relationship out of the gate with us occupying it, and as our needs change, because I'm fairly confident that at some point our needs are going to exceed what this building can do for us. But one thing that it achieves is the preservation, which is one of the concerns, because you know that this is staying within our government entities, and so the Dollar General fear is not going to happen while we have a lease, right? So that might be just something to consider as we're working through this, is that maybe it starts with a portion of what you've proposed here, and it can grow into something into the future. But again, this is just one perspective of what I'm looking at the moment. So,
Could I ask a question? I didn't mean to interrupt, Will, if you were finished. I was just going to say, instead of looking at the long ways, if security is the major issue, right, that seems to be the biggest concern right now in the utilization of space, what if just like right here, you had something here, and your entry was in and out right there? You're not having to build a whole new, for the museum, I'm saying, you're going in that one side. I think this team has not had a conversation.
No.
So that's what I was hoping we were gonna see today, was a conversation that had already taken place.
well, we have a proposal. You haven't seen exactly what we're planning yet, so you kind of were,
This has all been done blindly.
Exactly.
Right,
So
right.
it is, you brought one. Hey, this is what we would like to see, right? And I think that was the right perspective for you to take. But now we have needs that we've got to address here in the next agenda item here, and to see how there could, if this can coexist. But that's what we have to work out on this side. We got to take both of their proposals, and then for us to come together and say, hey, how can this work?
When we did the walkthrough, you had asked the Historical Society bring
Your presentation.
to the presentation that you brought to the county.
Yeah, because I'll be very honest, I feel badly I don't know if anybody else feels that way. I feel badly because I know the Historical Society was already down the road in discussions with the county. And then we popped up to have the conversation. So I kind of feel a little, not that we are responsible to have a partnership, but I think in being good partners, that is the responsible thing to do. And in addition to, again, just the tremendous educational benefits to the community in doing some kind of partnership like that, depending on what space is possible.
We tend to be ambitious because we want to make an impact on this community and on the county. And even though the direction of things have changed, we're kind of used to that. We're kind of used to working on the fly and on the run and changing things. And timing is always everything. There may be a time and a place down the road for bigger things. And the list of 7 items that I put forward here is basically just like a menu at a restaurant. One from column A, one from column B. See what works, but this is what we're thinking. And then at subsequent meetings, we could go ahead and sit down and work out the particulars of what would work. You know, with the 2 buildings that we have, we are chock full to the brim of stuff and artifacts.
And they are. I've seen the
you know,
inside. It's full.
Yeah, we've rearranged things now. I think there's no more space at the inn for for where we're at right now. And, you know, we're just excited about the opportunity to work together. Again, education is our strongest paramount. It's why I put 40 hours a week as a volunteer into this organization, because I really want to see an impact on the students in the county and their families and their parents. They're our future. We need to invest in them. Yeah, that's why I appreciate the work that all of you are doing here on the school board. And we are ready to roll up our sleeves and step alongside to make a difference. So we're more than willing to not have any attachment to everything that I presented today. If somebody says, well, how about these 6 rooms or those, whatever it is, we're more than willing to sit down and figure out how we can best work together.
Okay.
Very good.
Great.
No other questions? Okay, well, thank you for your presentation.
All right,
Really
thank you so much.
appreciate
I
all
appreciate
the
your time.
information you brought today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
All right, so
Thank you very
now
much.
we'll move on to
Thanks.
10.04, courthouse and annex update.
All right, good afternoon, Board, Chair Furry, Superintendent Moore. At the June 18 board meeting, you had requested that I provide you with an update on the courthouse as to what the programs and that we were projected or putting in the building. And if you could go to the next slide, the agenda slide. This is what I'll cover in this presentation. Go to the next slide. The programs, these are the list that was presented at the 18 June meeting, and there are no changes. These were what we had discussed at that meeting. Next slide. The considerations really have not changed. However, the main reason for the courthouse was to free up the 10 classrooms that we have at Bunnell and Rimfire, and to free up some of our portables so that we could recoup that financial obligation. Next slide. This is the current floor plan as it stands with what the academy modified the original courthouse. And if you go to the next slide, this is showing the potential programs on the first floor of the annex. We are looking at the adults with disabilities and creating one large classroom, which would include a kitchen, a washer, a dryer, and a training area. Also repurposing several classrooms as offices in the annex area. The main expense for this section would come from the commercial hood, the Ansel fire suppression system that we would need to add for the kitchen area, and the electrical panel that would need to support those facilities. The red lines on this document show the new walls or doors or windows that we would add. On the historic side, in the front lobby, we would add a lockable door with a window, much like our lobbies at our schools. That's when you first come in. This would allow access for parents for appointments on any floor after they have checked in and badged and done security through our system.
So wait, Deb, I'm sorry. So they go through the front doors, and there's that red line's a wall?
That's a wall with a door. It's a storefront.
Okay. Where's you're saying a reception?
There would be a reception right behind that.
Okay. And then they go down the few stairs, and before the elevators, is that a wall?
That
or
is
a door?
That is another storefront door.
Okay.
That would prevent access from the adults with disabilities getting into the other side of the building.
Okay.
Getting into the elevators. That was a concern that the adults with disabilities director had, that, you know, their students or their adults would come up and play with the elevator or could wander
got you. Okay.
up through the building, so we wanted to be able to restrict their access through there.
The Half Moon Room, who's utilizing that?
That would be part of adults with disabilities.
Okay, that makes
Right.
sense.
And I probably should have colored
I
that
did.
appropriately. And we weren't proposing any modifications to that at this time,
Okay,
but that could be something at a later
yeah,
time.
yeah.
I did reach out to Dr. Halliday, and she had mentioned that she would like to have some type of trail cafe on the first floor. So that's a potential option.
Isn't there a full kitchen on the third floor?
There is basically a sink and a refrigerator.
Well, it's gone. That's all been removed.
Oh, it has?
That was
Yes.
theirs.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, that was all.
But that's where the
theirs.
cafeteria was,
Yeah.
is that what I'm thinking?
That's where their cafeteria was
Makeshift.
for their elementary
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
students.
Correct.
was.
There was no cooking facility with the
No.
with the hood and
The
the
cooking
vent?
facility was up on the third floor.
That's what I mean.
But that was not used by the students on the first floor. They didn't travel.
No,
up
I
to
know that, but I'm saying, that's what I'm saying, there is cooking, there's
There-
like a kitchen up.
There was a
Cafeteria.
kitchen, a sink, and a portable oven, basically.
That's all gone.
But
Okay.
That
Is
is-
all the
Okay.
vents and stuff there that need to vent
It
in?
They
was-
didn't have any.
Oh, they
They
didn't
didn't
have
have
that?
any of those.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
boy.
No.
yeah.
That was when Dave was talking about with adults with disability, you know, how we have to do construction is
Different.
very different than a private school would
Yeah.
need to.
Right.
Okay.
We also, on the first floor, we have a trail coordinator office. There's a mechanical office space, that's where the intercom system, that's where the fire suppression system is in that area. And then we have some of the blue that listed there is that's common areas. So we do have, potential for a couple rooms there if that's something that the board wants us to look at. We have set aside a place for a school health assistant as well. You can go to the next slide. The second floor, this is how the second floor currently is today, showing the classrooms, offices, bathrooms. Go to the next slide. This is,
I'm sorry, Dave. Was
ahead.
there discussion about keeping the trail cafe and the trail coordinator all together on the second floor?
there was, and we do have a space where we could put the coordinator, but the idea of a cafe would be open to anybody in the building that could come down and
Right,
get a
but the only
cafe.
ones that would do that would be residents of those that are on the second and the third floor.
Or somebody, it could be, from the second and third floor, either on the annex side or the historical side.
Right.
Right, the adults with disabilities,
They're not gonna,
they're not gonna come in there, but the staff might be able
but it
to come
would,
in there.
okay. It just seems like, okay. Just seems like it would make sense to have the coordinator in the kitchen,
Yeah.
the cafe place, the same.
Yeah, well, we
Where they're all
have
together.
plumbing in that, on the first floor, there's already plumbing
Mhm.
for a cafe. On the second floor, there's really no plumbing to, if we wanted to put a cafe there, we would have to add plumbing.
Okay.
Okay. So the second floor, we have our federal programs all in our historic side. We have a common area, which is the old courthouse, which is the training, we would make into a training room or a meeting room. Our Rise Up would have 2 rooms for their iFlagler, not Rise Up, but iFlagler would have two rooms for their teachers on the second floor. And then the trail program with the Ed Foundation Stuff Bus would be on the second floor.
So just just a couple of questions. So the federal programs are currently right now, right
Over in
here.
Bunnell,
Oh, They're at Bunnell Elementary School?
yeah, taking up 3 classrooms.
Yeah, we need
Okay.
classrooms, I think that's great.
That would be
Okay.
great.
I didn't know that that's where they were right now.
Yeah. And then we also looked at the potential for our SRO, and this is a place that we had identified for the SRO, was on the second floor, that they could see the east side of the building and also the north side of the building. But that person would be, walking around, wandering. But
Is
would
that
be
training
the
room
office.
and meeting room the big church?
That's the
Yes,
big
ma'am.
old courtroom basically, with the pews. and-
But it was where they had church, yeah,
Right.
okay.
It's got a stage too, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
It
Built
has,
up.
correct.
yep,
Yeah.
it did. If you go to the next slide. Next slide is the third floor, how the third floor is configured. And then if we move to the next slide after that, that's our future. Third floor would house our Rise Up on Flagler on the annex side. There is no historic third floor portion. We would use the existing classrooms for Rise Up, take other classrooms and repurpose the offices for the principal, the assistant principal, counselor, caseworker. At a later date, we would create a future classroom for Rise Up. That would give them 3 classrooms. Currently, they have 2 classrooms. And then we'd also add a bath. And then once we created that future classroom, that would allow us to have that conference room, a smaller little conference room, teacher conference room.
And that area is the old
Cafeteria.
cafeteria.
That's
That's a
correct.
huge space, okay.
Right. The break room, what we have listed as the break room is where the old
Kitchen was, yeah.
kitchen was. The new walls and doors are listed on here. On the second floor, there's really no adjustments that we would make to walls or doors. We have a bath up there that we'd add, and then we cut one of those classrooms up and made it into 2 offices, put a door in a couple areas. Okay?
Dave, so you have 2 Flagler teachers, that's office space?
Classroom.
Or, well, they only have 2 classrooms.
Yeah, they're in 2 classrooms, but there are 2 Flagler teachers in those classrooms. Currently,
4 classrooms then?
so they would have 4 classrooms.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Right. Currently, they are over at Rimfire in 3 classrooms, I believe, and Aaron can correct me if I'm wrong.
So the principal and assistant principal room, those are old classrooms. Those are massive.
Those were pretty small, if you remember. They were,
For an office?
They were definitely, the shape of them did not really allow for
Okay.
a classroom.
They
For the programs that we need to put into those classrooms.
they were longer classrooms.
Yes, yes.
They were, but
They were elongated, yeah.
Yeah.
Remember those? Yeah.
And
That's
I will
right.
say
Yeah.
that since we have met in the principals, there was a suggestion to add a bathroom in there as well that's, we haven't updated. I haven't got with Dave to update a few things, but, so that room depth-wise where you see counselor and principal,
Yeah.
that was, I believe 28 feet deep, so that would approximately be 14. The principal's roughly maybe 14 by about 20, but then if we put the bathroom in there, that'd be smaller if that gives you.
Yeah.
So we're building that partition wall in the middle.
The red.
Yes.
The red, yes, sir.
Okay.
And then adding a door.
Yeah, I see it.
Yeah. If you go to the next slide, we looked at parking for the building. Currently, there are 57 total parking spaces, and you see how they're configured. There's 40 spaces to the, the southeast of the building off of South Pine Street. Also parking on the east and west. And then we would create a handicap parking space that would allow us to have handicap entrance coming into the back of the building.
Gotcha.
Because we needed it on our side of the property. If you go to the next slide, fencing in order to prevent, to secure the building, we would have fencing and gates needed on the east side of the historic and the annex portion of the building and the west side of the annex. And that would prevent somebody from coming up to a door, knocking on a door, and, somebody opening up the door for them. They would have to, it would create a single point of entry.
Yeah, I thought that was fenced in,
Yeah, I
wasn't
thought
it? The
that's
back,
fenced.
The back is fenced
Yes.
in, the yellow is new fencing.
Okay.
The red is
The red is
existing
existing.
fencing.
Oh,
Okay.
I was following,
So it's just the
okay.
yellow we have to add.
That's correct.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
And there would be panic hardware on those gates that we would add, and it would create that single point of entry.
Yep.
So we would still continue to use that black top in the back for outdoor activities? Is that what that
The
still
one-
be intended
yes.
for?
Yeah,
for
your adults with
disabilities?
disabilities.
Yes.
Right.
They'd love
And they
that.
currently have a
Yeah.
top at their location. That's something that they need.
Right. If you go on to the next slide, we looked at the traffic flow of the different programs that are coming through. Our Rise Up, our Adults with Disability, and our Trail program. We have the times on when they would come through, the buses. We would bring our bus for drop-off would be on the east side of the building, and those students would come up through that east entry point, and then the Rise Up, the Adults with Disabilities and the Trail students would come in through that fenced-in area in the back. Just like the school did, they just opened up those gates and they had their car line
Right.
going through there.
And is that access is wide enough for the bus to turn into that?
Yes,
Okay.
sure is.
Okay.
If you go to the next slide, this is our timeline. Depending on guidance from the board, we would sign a lease in August and that would go into effect in September, because the existing school would not be able to vacate till the end of August. We would demo the areas and start construction. After demo, start painting, and then do any flooring that we're doing, network phones, clean, and then move our programs in December. And then our goal would be to start on January, new start of the year. And then we would start the process for prepping and removing our portables. Go to the next slide. This is the same fiscal impact slide from the previous brief. Highlighted the cost for monthly and annual leases versus the rental of portables. Again, the main thing that we want to be able to is recover those 10 classrooms at our 2 elementary schools. I have discussed this, our proposal with the county, and we are exploring options with them to either acquire, purchase, trade, transfer ownership. The county has told me they have no use for the building. So if at the board's direction, I can continue that conversation with them. But they have told me they don't have any
They
use
don't
for
have a
it
plan.
right now.
And so that, in the event that, meaning they're not intending to move any type of departments, programs, all of those things, not they're like, get rid of the building, use in the sense of they don't intend to utilize the building for the purpose of the county.
Well, that's interesting. Well, that ideally, we're going to have what would be the lease term on this that we would be entering into?
The lease term that the school used was a 10-year lease.
Okay.
On the direction of the board, that I would recommend at least a 10 years.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ideally, we have a 10-year lease, so we have use of that building for 10 years. I would, since they don't really have a defined use for the building anymore, we could either put in a right of first refusal possibly to entertain a purchase. I just don't know if we should get into a commitment to purchase the building right out of the gate here,
Yeah. Has there been any conversations about, you do hear about these things where you're looking at $1 a year lease and we maintain the building?
I have not had that conversation with them, but I got the feeling from the county that, all options are on the table.
Yeah, the worst, it doesn't hurt to ask.
And I want a couple things that I want to
From one entity to
mention.
another,
Yes.
governmental entity to another, that happens, so.
A couple things I want to mention. One, I do want the Historical Society to know when we initiated this conversation as a potential, we had no idea that there was any plan or progression towards them. So I don't want you guys to feel like the big bag school district is coming in and jumping ahead because they can pay to rent the building. So I want that to be just known. I also want to acknowledge that this presentation also was done in preparation before any discussion about a possibility of a level of partnership with the Historical Society as well. So you don't see that in
Right,
there.
right.
And then thirdly, I do want to also, state that though the county knows that we are interested and we are showing our interest by continuing to bring information to the board, we have not gone into any official negotiation with them. We really have just stated, hey, tell us these things. We've asked questions. They've been able to provide that. And so really from the board, if you want us to go and have an official conversation with the county, we'll go and do that, and we can consider all these things that we've discussed. We'll also go back at the direction of the board as well and sit with the Historical Society and look at what type of plan we can come up and bring before the board of a collaboration. But the conversations have not been official, us sitting down in any level of negotiation, but they are prepared to do that when we are prepared to sit down and have those conversations.
Well, I mean, just looking at the proposal here, walking the building, seeing now the layout, I mean, it just seems like this would be the right direction for us to go is to lease this building. Whether we end up purchasing it in the end or not, but out of the gate, it appears it provides a substantial cost savings over time, and it opens up efficiencies and opens up other access to classrooms that we're occupying that could be used better served at the school. So I think that is, we're going that way, but I don't want to really bog it down with, because going into the contract of buying the building right now.
That might be down the road.
Yeah, I would like to see us, move forward with on negotiations on the lease and how we would occupy it and all that, and then we can add some component there. I would imagine even within our 10-year lease, if we said, hey, county, we'd like to maybe buy the building, we could have those conversations during the lease also. But I mean, if we could even put a right of first refusal in there, only for the reason of preservation, because if somebody else came in and wanted to buy the building from the county, essentially, I mean, the way I understand it, like any other lease, you could buy the building with the tenant and then wait for them to be done and do what you want with it, right? So if we had a right of first refusal, that could put a little protection of preservation in there for the future, right? If we wanted to make sure this stayed a historical building to potentially reach the ambition of the Historical Society or whatever it would be used for in the future for the county.
What's the maintenance with the lease?
What I did with the county is I got a copy of the lease that they had with the school. And there was, the maintenance that the county maintained was basically, there was a list of 7 or 8 items. It was the fire suppression, the elevators, the roof, the air conditioning. And I know that the county has been putting in every month a CAM, which is a charges for common area maintenance. So when you have a lease, you put money aside that goes into a fund for maintenance, for repair and replacement of items. And there's a substantial amount in that, and that potentially could be something that if we either purchased it or traded for it or transferred ownership, that would go with the building, is what I would understand. So
yeah, I just concerned about.
They had a big expense though with the water lines.
They did.
And they actually split the costs.
Right. It was
The
around.
school paid half and
Right, it was around 30,000 is what I understood.
Yeah, so
And that was for the main going out
I
to
believe so.
connecting to the sewer, yeah.
Yeah.
My biggest concern about owning the building, owning a historical building, it's different than owning just a regular building, commercial building, because it becomes with the cost of maintaining its historical architecture and everything that goes with it. And that could be a financial burden on the district in the future if it is, deemed a historical structure in the way where it had to be maintained in that way. That's my only concern in the long run, right? Because the backside of the building is basically a commercial building on the backside. So, I mean, essentially, it could be two buildings at the end of the day, almost like, you could have two different folios for them. But I'm only bringing that out for the purpose of conversation. I'm not opposed to us maybe in the future looking at that option of buying it. But my concern is we may find ourselves in the same position as the county and say, we have no more use for this building because our needs have changed and we're going to build something else on another piece of property. I don't want to get stuck with a building that we can't use. So I think it's personally a little too early to forecast the future for owning it. But I'm glad to know that that's a possibility.
Yeah, no, and there are things that we might be able to do a swap for.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a conversation to pursue. I've got some
Down
ideas
the
I'll
road,
share
down the road,
offline.
down the road,
Okay.
yeah, not now. Right now, it's just lease. And I
Okay,
agree.
so our direction is to
For
go
dollar.
and begin
Yeah, I
having
get you.
an official
Yeah, dollar.
conversation with the county. And is it the direction of the board for us also to go and have official conversations with the Historical Society around?
Yes.
a
I would
partnership?
very much
Participation,
like
yes.
us to see us have that collaborative conversation
See if we can work
and
it
see
out.
if there's something we can come back with.
Yeah, and if I can ask a quick question, Superintendent Moore, quick question. When is or was your 1-year anniversary of when you were official superintendent?
Still not official.
10, it'll be October.
Still not yet. It's in October.
Okay, so you've been really busy, but I know you're a visionary, and so I guess for me to answer that question for me is in your vision, knowing the needs of the district, knowing the building space that you need and what you have available, do you at this point feel like we can have a partnership with the historic district or a community? I don't want to put you on the spot. I'd love to just be really upfront with kind of like where everything is for everybody's sake.
I definitely do not feel put on the spot with that. I think we won't know really what that partnership can look like until we really sit down and begin to plan and have a conversation around what are we moving all of these programs on day one? What can it really look like? And I think they have had conversations with maybe board members or other people in the community, but until we sit down really as staff from the operational side to really look at a proposal that we could live with and be able to bring out what are the pros and cons of that partnership so that you as a board can have something to truly consider. So I think that a conversation is definitely needed between us and the Historical Society so that we can gauge a plan for what it could look like.
That's fair.
I love that. Yeah, then I see no reason why that wouldn't be the direction of the board.
And, one of the way to look at this too, could it also look a little differently? Does it have a physical office presence or exhibit presence? Or is it more about having access in a sense that through educational tours, things like that? Because they're right across the street, and they have a place right now where they're physically located, where they're almost like a use of facilities in the sense for certain historical, educational reasons to tour and maybe we can even provide some of the vault space to store some of their historical documents for protection, and also maybe free up space within the buildings they have right now across the street as part of the conversation, because I'm looking at this plan here and I'm not seeing a lot of extra space based on what you've presented. Not to say that we won't find it, but just to include in the conversation on a phased approach of what this might look like. So,
All right. I did have one more slide which discussed our budget. If you could go to the next slide. Our plant services did an analysis of the building and what we would need to renovate to meet the needs of the programs as well as keeping our students and staff safe. Outside of the building, I've already discussed about the fencing and the gates and ensuring we have a single point of entry. The first floor, the main modification, again, would be that kitchen area / training room. The plumbing would also, the electrical plumbing in that area would also need to be modified. Painting of the entire floors, we've put a budget line in for that, for painting and flooring of the historic section of the building, making a true lobby at the front entrance, and making that rear section of the annex to prevent the adults from disabilities wandering into the front of the building. Signage throughout the whole building. The signage on your classrooms has to be ADA accessible with the braille and information on signage. Second floor, locks, flooring, painting. Third floor, adding 2 bathrooms for the Rise Up students, modifying some of the classrooms and the offices and creating that third classroom and conference room area. And this price, the budget that we came up would include a 10% contingency listed as well.
I think we'll probably see that this would change after the collaboration and conversation as well, because what the plan is may change. So I think as far as a ballpark, is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we had to come up with budget line items, and we're able to go through each one of those floors, and we have detailed line items for each one of those floors, so now we came up with those numbers.
Would that come out of, obviously, capital? Your
Yeah.
5-year, so you'd have to amend the 5-year plan?
Right, and if you remember, we had the adults with disability, we had that
Yes.
line item for adults with disabilities.
Yeah.
Oh, how much do we have in that, do you remember?
This next year, it was,
It was 1.25.
Yeah, it was
So
up
we're-
there.
So we're within that would be our.
Well, it's
we have
way-
to stay
yeah,
within that
half
parameter.
Yes.
almost.
Yeah, to make that happen.
And that works for not just
Everybody.
the.
and if you
Yeah,
could go
the
to the last slide. So we do have a copy of the facilities structural assessment that the county gave us, which really was a good report for the historical part of the building. We did our own independent air quality inspection, and those came back with good results as well. We would continue, as the direction that you've stated, we'll reach out to the county and reach out to the Historical Society.
Do we have any idea the assessed value of the building?
I could look at what the property
Has the county-
appraiser.
I'm gonna say
That's
only
hard
what's
to
on the
tell.
property, I think it was close to 3 million, I believe.
Yeah.
I think when I looked at it, David, it was 2.9.
Okay,
Don't quote me on that.
right. Won't hold you to it.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll find out and let you know.
Just curious.
Good.
All right.
Hey, Chair Bird, can I ask one more question on the slide?
Yes?
So, Dave, something that I've brought up before is the fire safety aspect of this. I don't know if you can speak to maybe how this facility compares to like one of our other multi-level facilities. I know when I toured it, as memory serves, there were rooms on potentially like a second or third floor with no windows. I know there's a sprinkler system, but that kind of continues to be a concern of mine, is just to make sure that this building would be just as safe as, for instance, one of our high schools from a fire safety, making sure our students would have an easy exit plan. I don't know if you can speak to that at all as far as making sure that's a part of the discussion.
Well, I mean, when you mentioned about the windows, we have many of our schools classrooms that don't have windows. I mean, you look at the Circle Hall of FPC, there's no windows for any of those classrooms there. So I don't think that's too much of a concern. The building is sprinkled.
You have stairwell.
And it has the 2 stairwells, and it has elevators, has all those points of egress. So I don't believe that that's a point of concern. Do you,
No.
Corey?
Okay,
Awesome, thank you.
all right. So we'll close out this agenda item, and we're going to move on. Thank you for that, Mr. Reed. And then we're going to move on now to 10.01, Mr. Bush, use of facilities.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thank
I'm going to leave it for Mr. Bush.
Good afternoon, Chair Furry, Board, Superintendent Moore. Bringing back to you the use of facility update. I brought this to you on the 18th, and there's only some very minor changes that we made per your discussion, your recommendation, excuse me. And on the very first, if you go to the, no, not this, not that, the policy 320. So when you're looking at this, the only changes that we made, it will have a red underline on there, and that would be section 4, where we added maybe. Section 4 and G. Right there. We just changed that to maybe. That was a conversation that we were having. Then also then in section 5, we added the Florida statute that we did not have in there per the recommendation of the board. And as far as the board policy 320, that was the only changes that we made from the 18th per y'all's recommendation. On the use of facilities handbook, page 7, again, the same thing. I just underlined what those changes were. Page 7, it was the word maybe again in there to reflect what is in board policy 320. And then on page 8, in here about what we added, that they would contact the Flagler Sheriff's Office to rent them themselves and not going through the school district. We felt that it was better that it was the responsibility of the people renting when there's more than 100. So that's the email,
Yeah.
or the link, excuse me, for them to go to be able to rent that. And then that is all the changes that we had since the 18th.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
No?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, so we
Thank
got
you.
another one for you.
Yes.
10.02.
This is the Matanzas edition update. I know we updated you on the 18th, but we had some other update that I wanted to go through. One of the big thing is about the schedule that I wanted to talk to you about. Originally, Phase 1 substantial was December 20th of 2004. And then Phase 2 was going to be May 30th of 2025. And then we had the, what we're calling Phase 3, which would be the Building 10, the old workshop. That was substantial complete in May of 2025. And this was the original timeline with a final completion of July 1st of 2025. The new timeline, and this, I'm bringing that up because of the change order that I'm bringing for you to let you aware, is Phase 1 substantial is still going to be 12/20 of 2024, if this change order is approved. That's important to know. And the reason why this change order is we had switchgear that was originally supposed to ship in March, and the switchgear is the large panel that basically brings power to the building. Unfortunately, it was delayed from March till November.
Ugh.
So,
Where's
what
it coming
the,
from?
Change.
Gray Bar is where it has been ordered through. It's just I could tell you a lot of the reasons they give, it didn't change
Yeah, it's
it
not
coming
gonna
in
change
November.
anything, right.
So what this change order is working with HA is essentially renting or leasing switch panels that we'll be able to put on site to continue the job moving forward at the same and meeting the substantial completion of Phase 1. And that is what the change order, which I'll go over in just a second. However, Phase 2 substantial will be moved up 6 months to be completed now in October 30th of 2024. And then Phase 3 will be moved up, completed 2 months earlier as well, with the final completion moving up 2 months as well and for May. So the change order that'll come for you on the next board meeting at 6 o'clock it's a $168,000 change order, and that cost is split. That is 50% of the overall cost. HA is the contractor, they're taking 50%, and we're taking 50%. And that is based off of 8 months, because we don't know exactly how long it's going to take, but so we wanted to look at the worst case scenario. So if it's only 6 months, we would still split the cost of that, so that obviously would reduce both parties.
So that's worst case scenario.
That's correct.
Okay.
And this is still part of, coming out of our contingency. This is not increasing our original overall budget that we had for the project. It's just increasing HA's number, their contract.
Well, I'm glad we're not bearing the cost of all of it. Was that our contractual language if something like this arose, or was this a negotiation?
No, this was a negotiation that we had with HA going back and forth, because, I mean, it wasn't something they did, it wasn't anything we did. We didn't want to push the project, because if we didn't do this and we just said we are not going to do the switchgear, then it would have pushed the project back 6 months of even getting to the completion. So because of all the things, we felt that it was, it made sense to do that.
Is there any consequence to the vendor for, I mean, that's significant from March to November?
I would love to tell you yes, but no. They, unfortunately, when you order things, they deliver them as they want to deliver them. I mean,
So they just gave us a lot of excuses, supply chain, all
yes,
those
and
things?
yes, all of that and then some. I mean, this obviously was not when HA was notified, this was not okay, we went back and forth, us, HA, we even called some engineers that had relationships to try to figure out if there was a way, could we, even pay something to keep it that was less than that, and the number that they gave us was triple of what that number was, so.
And is there isn't another supplier that could provide this sooner than the one that we're waiting on?
Yes, but the cost exceeded what this cost would have been. Because essentially, if you do that, you bump somebody, so to bump somebody and get ahead of the line, it's gonna cost you to do that. So we did look at several different avenues, and this was the least financial impact to getting where we needed to.
So it would be significantly more to buy it from another vendor, even though we're paying this extra fee for the temporary one, that would exceed getting one now so that we could move
Correct.
forward? Okay.
I just talked to an engineer, they actually, another project, not our project, it was $90-something thousand for the switchgear, and they paid $200 and something thousand to get it here by December. Oh, because their lead time is right around 12 months, and they didn't want to wait 12 months, so they didn't.
Okay. And was there any significant cost to transfer from the temporary to the permanent one once it finally arrives beyond all encompassing?
This is all,
Oh,
this is
okay.
all part of
Okay.
this change order that you will sign is all part of that. It is all bringing the temporary panels, the cabling, and then also the wiring, and then, obviously the original wiring for the switch panel was part of the project, but all of that all encompasses in this dollar amount.
Okay. All right.
Any other questions?
No.
No? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Would any of you like a break here at this moment? We've got quite a few things to go through here. Okay, so, all right, we'll take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, bye.
I think
And we are going to move on to 9, academic service consent, 9.01, and we have Mr. Jackson, Ms. Williams, and Mr. Finelli with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will go to 9.01, mental health review, 23-24 school year.
Thank you. So I am here to present several topics. So I am going to go through this with focus and direction, but please know that you are welcome to reach out to me for questions. So first, we're going to go over the 23-24 mental health school year review for numbers. We're going to talk about the continuum, students who were engaged in the continuum, involuntary examinations, also known as the Baker Act, and then social work service numbers for the school year. So as a very brief, quick review on our mental health plan, we've talked about this multiple times. I think you guys are all familiar with this. Our mental health plan is a multi-tiered system of supports. Tier 1 are all of our staff and all of our students. Tier 2 are students who are in need of maybe some brief solution-focused counseling. Those are provided by our school counselors. Tier 3 is clinical treatment that's provided by our licensed clinicians for students who may have a mental health diagnosis that's impacting their ability to access their education. And the intensive portion at the very top is our students who have wraparound services from maybe different community-based service providers, such as Family Services Planning Team, Children in Need of Services, Family in Need of Services, DCF, DJJ. Tier 1, for numbers purposes, we're not going to go over because obviously, like we just said, that's all of our students. So we start with Tier 2. Our data trend for Tier 2 is that you will notice that our numbers went up significantly. We attribute this mainly to the fact that our staff and faculty are really doing well at identification for our students. After Youth Mental Health First Aid has been really coming out and people are attending, and we have a high number of people who have been through the training. In addition, they're doing a great job of documenting all of their interventions and assessments that they're providing. So our Tier 2 data trend looks like a higher number this year than what you would see in previous years. Tier 3 data looks about average. It is up a little bit. These are our students who are asking for mental health treatment services. So these are referrals that were processed for students who requested services. And Tier 3 intensive, again, also about average. We're a little over 60 for students. So these are students who, again, are in need of those wraparound services. Students who have been identified for services and engagement. You'll see 3 bars for each year over the last several years. The highest bar for this past year is 1,414 students. Those are the total number of students who are identified for services. That's Tier 2 and Tier 3, obviously. Those who were referred is a lower number, obviously, because not every parent or legal guardian requests a referral. So we referred out 1,332 students, and of those who requested a referral, 1,183 students received a service.
Just real quick.
Yes.
The 300 increase for referrals. You think
So
that goes
students
back to
identified
tie
goes back to the
Tier 2?
yep, the higher number of identified students for this past year.
It's nice to see the received services going up, but gosh, you would really like to see that equalized.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. Involuntary examinations, also known as the Baker Acts. These are the Baker Act trend numbers that you see across the county for the past several years. Focusing on this past year, we have 67 that have occurred on campus. Of those 67, it covers 55 students. So we've had a few students who unfortunately met criteria for an involuntary examination across the district for the entire school year. 692 is the total for Flagler County for this past year, and 211 is those who are under the age of 18. And then the next number is an addition that I made. Thank you. Last year I didn't disclose this number really just because we didn't have the data for it, but these are encounters. These are social work encounters. So we have 7 social workers across the entire district. 2 of them are allocated to a grant. 5 of them are on campuses. And a lot of times people ask, what are our social workers doing? And so I put together a pie chart of mainly most of the interactions and services that they provide. 8,148 encounters covers every time a social worker reaches out to a family or provides a service for that family. So there were 8,148 of those for the entire school year.
So on average, each individual is 1,000.
On average. And again, I can drill down those numbers for you if you would like to see them drilled down separately. So, can you forward me, Naya? Thank you. The last thing I just want to go over is just to let you know that the FSYS survey results are available on the DOE website now. Those are the survey results that DOE puts out that discusses the students' overall resiliency and health behavior for the year, as well as the long-awaited DCF Baker Act dashboard is now available. So both of those links are in the presentation for you. And I think that covers me for this one. Just a clarification, this was not I'm not asking for any action on this. This is just data that I bring to you at the end of every year, right before we talk about the next presentation, which is our new mental health plan for next school year.
Brandy, for the youth survey, I looked at that link, but it seems like a statewide report.
It is.
Do they not have the district report so you can drill down into the data anymore?
We talked about that at the last conference. They don't have it
That
drilled
is
down
such
to
a
the district.
disservice
It is.
to do away with that. It really, and it's heartbreaking that
Yeah.
it's really political.
Yeah, we talked about that at the
Terrible.
last conference with
Terrible.
DOE leadership, and we weren't the only district that
Sure.
made mention of it.
That's too bad.
So the mental health plan, again, with focus and direction, this is the 2024-2025 mental health plan, has to be submitted to DOE by August 1st. General overview of this plan is this is how we get our mental health assistance allocation. We're required to provide, we are required to do establishing or expanding school-based mental health care. So all of our policies and procedures have to work on expanding that school-based mental health care. We're required to train educators and school staff in responding to mental health needs, and we're required to connect children, youth, and families who may be experiencing behavioral health issues with appropriate services. So the plan overview, that you'll probably recognize this, the structure is exactly the same as it was last year. There are 15 plan assurances. There were no additions. There was one removal, and that is that districts now have the ability to use the mental health assistance allocation to fund any increases in salaries and bonuses. The other portions of the plan are how we're implementing all of our programmatic pieces, specifically our evidence-based practices. You'll see all of those in the plan themselves. So I go over each one of them. We talk about how we implement it, where we implement it, what identifies the student for implementation, and we have to discuss our outcome measures on those. Direct employment is required to show them what our current ratios are, because again, the goal of the plan is to reduce those ratios or work towards reducing those ratios. And then the policy roles and responsibilities of each staff also describe how we're going to be working towards providing services for Flagler students. The last thing in that portion is the community-based agreements, or our MOUs, or memorandums of understandings. We're required to disclose all of those as well. The MHAA, or Mental Health Assistance Allocation, planned funds and expenditures, is our projected budget. It is attached for your review. That includes the rollover as well. And then the last portion of the mental health plan is the certification, which is where we will be asking for your board approval on the 23rd. This is just a brief overview of the budget estimates. Again, those are all broken down. What you'll find is in most of those, most of the allocation is provided towards salaries, in addition to Imagine getting their portion. So clarification, again, will be coming before the board on July 23rd with a request to approve this plan for submission by August 1. Okay. Next one. Link. So Link software agreement is this next one. This goes with strategic goal number 3. For improving social emotional well-being throughout the school and community and district. So what is Link? Link is a software system. Link stands for Linking Individuals to Networks of Care. It's a shared platform and database that allows users to enter and track client information. So this is what we use for our mental health referral software. The value of the software is, like we talked about the numbers a few minutes ago, we are sending out approximately 680 students per year for mental health referrals, with a total of 1,000 referrals. Quite often, because we have a certain number of students who are in need and asking for referrals, but once we send those referrals, if there's a problem with insurance, a problem with capacity, a problem with being able to access that service for whatever reason, we're having to do other referrals to a different provider. In addition, a lot of our students may start out as tier 2 at the beginning of the year, and then they need a higher level of care, and so we're doing referrals at the level 3 and 3 intensive. Each one of those referrals we have to track from beginning to end. So every referral is tracked until it's closed. So we can tell when a student still hasn't gotten their first service, we can tell when a student has had 20 services, and we can tell when a student is closed out, whether they're successful or unsuccessful. But there's a lot of back and forth to make that happen.
So is this, I was curious when you were going over the numbers and seeing the jump in the tier 2, if there was a new tracking system. Is this part of a tracking system you use?
This is only for tier 3, for clinical referrals that are sent externally or internally.
Are you using a different or a new tracking system for tier 2?
No, we're still
Seeing that
having
you
them
had-
place those, that tracking is in Skyward currently.
Okay.
Yep.
But a higher level of professional learning.
Yes.
Yeah, I was
being
just curious if it
provided
was a
and
new tool or
accountability.
something, yeah.
There's a lot more check-ins happening, a lot more of like, of them understanding when they are providing that service. So it's getting
documentation,
documented more often as well.
Because I would think some of it should be automated.
I mean, they still have to generate the note, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So these referrals, again, the value of this is that because there's a lot of back and forth with each referral, and we are mandated to make sure that we are getting services to our students within 15 days for the initial assessment and 30 for their first date of service. There's a lot of effort that goes into that first couple of weeks to make sure that they're getting those services and that providers are following up with our families. The referral software tracks when our providers are or are not reaching out to our families, which makes it easy for us to call them and say, where you at with this person? They need this service, right? So it's been very helpful for that, and we have to do that all within tight timeframes. So for the overview of this particular agreement, the agreement is provided for you on the platform. This is actually a renewal request for an agreement we already have in place with Link. Link is changing their software provider that drives that platform from one provider to another. So we are asking to continue that agreement with them. The main agreement is broken down as the policies and procedures, a business associate agreement, and then an education data privacy agreement that with all of its accompanying exhibits that we require to protect our student data. And next slide. So clarification of this request is we are coming before the board asking for the approval of this software agreement to continue for the new school year. And the next one is a request for an MOU. So memorandum of understanding agreement between Flagler Schools and Flagler Cares. Again, this goes for strategic goal number 3 for improving social and emotional well-being throughout the school community and district. Flagler Cares is an agency that we currently use for multiple services. So they're a nonprofit organization locally. They're focused on creating an expansive social safety net that addresses health and social needs of Flagler County. They're kind of a one-stop shop for our families depending on what the need is for the family. So they provide all of the services that are on this slide. Current collaborations, we already are working with them in a criminal justice mental health substance abuse grant. This renewal is currently pending. We're at the end of the 6th year, which we've renewed already once, and going hopefully into a new grant. We should have the announcement on the renewal next week sometime. But we already are in this grant where they fund 2 positions on our staff, one social worker who manages the Tier 3 intensive students, as well as a social worker and clinician who provides services at Rise Up. We also work with them. They present at several of our community events, Carver Center Community Support twice per month. They're at our Carver Center providing support for our families, and they attend a lot of our school-sponsored events for our families who are in need of support and services. The identified gaps that we notice that Flagler Cares can help with is they do offer behavioral mental health services, benefit assistance and navigation, screening and referrals, assistance with identification, meaning driver's license type identification, and health insurance marketplace navigation. Currently, we do not have a memorandum of understanding with them, so we're unable to refer people directly to them. It causes a delay in our families getting what they need or getting access to services. We know families who have to ask for help more than once, oftentimes won't do that, and they won't get access to the services that they need. And those services that Flagler Cares provides for our families are some of their basic needs of services, so food, shelter, things like that. So we really would like to facilitate being able to get those families and students linked with a memorandum of understanding with Flagler Cares so that we can provide that direct referral to them. So that agreement is also attached. The main agreement between Flagler Schools and the provider outlines their services, the documentation and processes that the provider has to follow in accordance with our policies and procedures, how the referrals are going to be managed, monitored, and completed. And then there's 2 exhibits, one for the agreement that outlines the processes in place for accessing our students when you come to campus, should the need be there, and that includes parent permission. And then the other exhibit is, again, our standard student data privacy agreement to protect our students' data. So clarification on this one will be coming before the board on the 23rd with a request to approve this memorandum of understanding with Flagler Cares. And I think that concludes.
That is all yours, yes.
That was a lot. That was pretty impressive.
Call me if you want to dig into
That was pretty good.
Yeah.
Any question on any of those?
No.
Okay, then we'll move on to 905, Mr. Finelli.
Good stuff.
All right, so I have the
Thank
next
you.
one up. I was going to say good afternoon, but I think I need to say good evening to everybody. So this next one, as Brandy had shared, our criminal justice mental health substance abuse grant is getting ready to sunset. The date on that is September 30th. We are hopeful that we did apply for a new grant that would expand this 3 years out. We should know next week if that is going to happen. With that, Halifax Hospital, knowing that we're coming to the end of the grant, decided to end their position at the end of June 30th. Their position was part of the grant. The grant pays for 2 positions with Flagler Schools, 2 with Flagler Sheriff's Office, and 1 with Halifax Hospital, and then administrative costs of the grant and also the utilization of the Link software is part of the grant that we currently have. Well, with Halifax ending the position on June 30th, it does leave some remaining funds, and in order not to just lose those funds and give those funds back to the state in the grant, we had to look at creating a sub-agreement and redistributing those funds. Well, since the majority of the funds are tied up in positions, you can't really add any money to those positions. But there are some administrative costs as well as transferring information from the old Link software to the new Link software that this additional surplus of funds could help out with. So we are actually the last person to review this sub-agreement. It has already been approved by all other participants in the grant, Flagler County, Flagler Sheriff's Office. So basically what this would do is it would redistribute any remaining funds to Flagler Cares to cover the cost of the transition of the information that's in the old referral system to the new referral system.
Got it.
Okay,
Yeah, you never want to give it back.
Nope.
good on reallocating that. Okay, so now we are going to be moving on to 16.01, Code of Student Conduct. Mr. Finelli.
Yes. All right. So not a lot of changes to Code of Student Conduct since we have put it out for advertisement. We did get some additional comments. You can see our approval timeline is almost at the end of the process. So it will be coming before you on July 23rd for final approval of the 24-25 Student Code of Conduct. With that, we have had a lot of input from different meetings and different areas across our district. So you can see all of the different meetings and input that we've sought throughout this process, starting way back in March, all the way through the final board meeting on July 23rd. We have received 87 different responses from stakeholder groups to include parents, students, school-based administrators, faculty, and staff.
Nice.
The next slide just shows which code they were referring to. It's very split, so some were elementary, some were secondary, and then some were both. Feedback focus. The areas of focus were discipline, dress code, and attendance were the main areas, with then some other areas split up underneath that. I'm not going to go through all of the recommended changes. We had done this in a previous workshop. The only new changes will come at the end of this presentation. I believe it's slide 18, which is the changes in regards to makeup work. And so makeup work was actually captured in the Student Code of Conduct. We felt that it would better be captured in the student progression plan. So we're removing it from the Student Code of Conduct and moving the language around makeup work to the student progression plan.
I'm glad to see the plagiarism piece, including AI.
Yes, there was a lot of work done around that with the AI committee and everything. So basically what we would be looking to add is that students are allowed to request and make up work in accordance with the district's student progression plan, and then we would remove the section on makeup work from the student code. Other than that, there have been no other changes or variations since we discussed at the last workshop. One comment that I did want to mention was there was a concern about elementary students and utilizing or not being allowed to utilize personal electronic devices on the bus. A parent had reached out, what if there was an emergency situation? And I just wanted to let everybody know, I discussed with academic leadership and executive leadership that in the case of an emergency, we would not be disciplining students for things that were reasonable and rational for the time.
Yeah, I mean, when we had this initial conversation years ago, it was, I think even the bus drivers thought it would be quiet, it would give them something to look at and something to do on the way home.
So I know it was, the reason, the concerns behind it were that they could not be monitored in their use of technology, especially elementary students, and that a lot of times they were not using those devices appropriately with no adults to monitor. And that was the main concern. But of course, if there was an issue of an emergency on the bus, a student would not be penalized as per the code of conduct for reaching out to a parent in a case of an emergency.
Okay. Any other questions?
The only other one, John, I don't know what slide this is, slide 16, I think it is, about AI. Do you know if Teresa has had any opportunities to really kind of look at that?
Yes, so majority of this information was provided to me
good.
by Teresa, and then I shared it with our academic leadership,
Great.
and everybody had a chance to review.
Good.
Yes. Yes, no, the large majority of this work was done with Teresa and the AI committee.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we're going to now move back to 9, academic services consents, to 9.06, ECTAC agreement. Tammy York. Welcome.
Hi, Tammy.
Good afternoon. I don't have
The
much
horse
left.
today.
I'm here to present for your consideration and approval at the next meeting, a renewal agreement between ECTAC, which is the East Coast Technical Assistance Center, and they provide a lot of technical assistance to all the program specialists and primarily my department, Mr. Reeves with Title II. They've done a lot of additional work with us as all the CARES and ESSER dollars have come out, really looking at all of those pass-through dollars from the federal government, helping us with allocations, compliance, all the support that we would need to make sure that our district utilizes the money well and to the best of our ability, as well as with clear audit compliance. So I'm just basically asking to renew that contract because it really is invaluable to my department. We currently oversee, as of today, we still have 18 grants that we oversee in our department. 11 will be closing out as of September 30th, and that'll leave us back with our traditional 7 or 8, and there are a few that have come about, stronger connections, and others out of Title IV. So there are always new grants coming on the wayside. So ECTAC does a really good job of, vetting all of those opportunities for us and helping us right to the best of our ability and supporting us in our knowledge and how to make sure that we're maintaining those as best we can.
Good.
On the contract, there is an area there where it says payment, and it says The member district agrees to pay the school board the amount of blank, and it's not filled in.
Oh, I apologize.
It's
You
on
don't have the new,
it's on the agenda item itself. I think it's 9,000.
and I'm sorry, I guess you don't have the updated one. It's $9,680.
Okay.
And I have an updated version that I will actually leave you for the signed copy.
If you could get that to Lorraine,
I will,
please, and
absolutely.
make sure that Ariel knows so that we can
I
have the most
will, and I
up-to-date
apologize,
on
I
the
thought
website.
she had the most up-to-date
It's
one.
on the actual agenda item, it's just not in the updated agreement.
This one was updated in March. I think they had some language changes, so I may have sent Ariel the wrong one. So I apologize on that.
Okay.
And all of this is funded primarily out of Title I.
Yep.
Because Title I's the big player in that. So we take care of that in the Title I grant. And then it benefits proportionally
That's good.
the other grants that we oversee.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So we
Thanks,
will-
Jan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Feel better?
9.07, Flagler Technical College, 24-25 fee schedule. Ms. Kirkland.
Evening.
Welcome.
Chair Furby,
Welcome.
Board, Superintendent Moore. This is the updated fee schedule for the 24-25 school year. We are not proposing any increases in fees for this year. It changes mostly dates.
Right. With the exception of Belterra and Racket Club.
It adds the
I saw that,
daily
the
use fee
daily
for,
use.
yeah, for Belterra Pool on it.
Will there be like a date limit, or is it just gonna run like that all year? How do you plan to do that?
It will be open for daily use as long as there are lifeguards there already. So we will not be paying lifeguards to extend the daily use fee into the winter.
Because I know as winter comes, things will slow down.
So it will be pretty much like seasonal based on what's
No,
happening
that's
within the
fine.
day, yes.
That's good.
But the swim teams still use it for practice.
Oh, yeah.
In the winter,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Teams and the people who rented it.
Yes.
But it wouldn't be open for swim then, right? Because they're leasing it on their
Right.
use of facilities, so it's only
Yeah.
when our programs are running, okay.
And, yeah,
To Labor Day?
basically Labor Day. But they don't utilize all lanes. We typically have some lanes open, so it may be that we have daily use fees if Tinker Bells don't have the other lanes,
Mm-hmm.
as long as there's a lifeguard there. So,
Okay, so if like Flagler Fluids is there, for example, like they do use of facilities, right? And so they'll have, do they have the lifeguard there during their programs?
They have their own.
Their own.
Their own, so
But
we
my-
would not be opening during
That's
that
right, that's
time
what I wanted to
because we
be,
don't
said.
have a-
Only when our programs are operating.
Yes,
Okay, got it.
yes.
Okay,
Thank you for that clarification,
Yes.
absolutely, that's exactly right.
very good.
That's easy.
All right.
okay.
Thank you. All right, 9.08, presence agreement. Ms. Holliday.
Good evening, Superintendent Moore, Chair Furry, and board members. We're here to talk to you a little bit about a request to consider a piggyback with the Sourcewell contract for a service contract with Presence. Presence is an organization that can provide Flagler schools with 2,000 different individuals who can provide evaluation. Well, we could do counseling, but evaluation services for our students who might be going through eligibility. Also, if in fact we have a need for students who are being screened for speech language services that are speakers of other languages, we will be able to utilize them as well. We've been without a full staff of school psychologists for a while, and I believe that this contract will be able to fill those gaps. One of our things that we attempted last year was to hire in and bring in a virtual school psychologist, and there were some really good things that happened with that. We learned how to do it. We learned how to, what was necessary as far as cameras, what was necessary as far as having individuals to assist. But what was the challenge was scheduling. Our schools need our access to a school counselor, a school psychologist when we need access to a school psychologist. And what we learned is, we were still kind of juggling with other people's times. Presence, they have 2,000 individuals that will work on our time. So for that reason, we are asking for you to consider allowing us to piggyback off of the Sourcewell and work with Presence.
So it's all virtual?
It is still all virtual. But our vision is that it will free up our school psychologists to really work with our students who might have more significant evaluation needs and the needs of the schools. If you've spoken to any of our school psychologists, one of their wishes is really to be invested in the school and not just to be full-time testers. Utilizing this, students that are moving through MTSS and they hit tier 3, that might be a student with a learning disability or something else that we don't need full formal evaluations, we would be able to hire a school psychologist from Presence from tier 3 to evaluation to eligibility. And that would take that off of the plates of our current school psychologists. So it would free them up a little bit.
Okay, good. Anything to make it go faster. Yep.
So it's just basically, they have more availability within the scheduling. It's not like an on-demand service, but they just are available more.
Both of those. It's also on demand.
It is on
Yes,
demand
sir.
as well?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
So what we'll be able to do is we will coordinate with all of our schools when it looks like we have a young person going to tier 3 that we believe would be able to benefit from this particular service delivery model. We would then coordinate with Presence. Presence would assign us to a school psychologist, and like I said, start to finish, they would be able to provide the service to that school and to that individual case.
Okay.
Makes sense. Okay.
All right, any other questions on this
No.
item? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank y'all very much.
Okay, 9.09 VPK fee schedule, Mr. Reeves.
Board members, Ms. Moore, Superintendent. A couple items for you tonight. 9.09 is VPK fee schedule. Just to let you know that there's been no increases to the fees or the structures we had in place from last year, so that's maintaining that piece and component.
Good, good. Parents will be very happy.
Yes, that is good. That is
Good news.
Absolutely. Any questions regarding that?
Just how are we doing on like waiting lists and things like that? Or?
So I'd be happy to tell you. So we have currently now about 279 students enrolled for VPK for next year.
How many did you say?
269.
Okay.
So we are at, or we're for last year already, and still have a whole month for enrollment. In addition to that, we have our pre-K students as well that are enrolling, which is our ESE students that we've identified to work with. We've expanded our VPK at Belterre, and we've expanded our blended pre-K VPK classrooms at both Wadsworth and Rimfire this year. Those are home zone school students attending their zone schools, which is great.
So nice.
Yes. It's been a few years in the works, and we're pleased to know that that's in place as well. So we are expanding and growing our program, and our wraparound services we're expanding as well. And that gives more opportunity to work with students if they're early learning and other social emotional skills and things like that, just for, we want to see those students learning and growing.
And
so.
as students are, or families are signing up and getting on the wait list, one of the big things that one of the things that we're experiencing right now is our ability to clear the wait list sometimes requires them to go to a different school where we have space to add another classroom. So when you think about Belterre Elementary School, we were able to clear their wait list one time already, and still they have another waiting list. And so even in doing that, but we don't have any more classroom spaces that we can add there to Belterre. So students who would be on the waiting list now, they would need to go to somewhere else. So.
And are parents receptive to that, to going to the other school to get access?
They are.
Yeah.
They've done that last year and over the years past. And some of them have gone to Wadsworth, and we've offered them also to go to Bunnell. So there really is not much of a wait list. Parents have been given opportunities to make some choice and decisions that work out best for their family.
And word will get around too, and people will just make those decisions earlier and earlier. Because they'll know the sooner they make, the sooner they do that.
And our conversation with the courthouse, a lot of that, especially for the Bunnell facility, will allow for us to have an opportunity to continue to expand and have classroom spaces where we can bring.
Right.
So all of those
That'll
pieces
open it all
go
up.
together.
Yeah.
We want to be able to add more VBK
Well,
classrooms, but we got to
we're-
have the classrooms to be able to
that's good.
do
We'll bring
that.
up another at Bunnell. I've already been working with Ms. McGee on that,
Yes.
so yes.
Well, that's good news.
Absolutely.
All right, any other questions on that? Okay, we got another one for you.
Yep, we have from Buddy Taylor, they have travel consent for 2 adults to head to Indiana to pick up two benches that were made out of recycled plastic caps. The Ed Foundation is doing that. It was just too expensive to ship those, and so they are traveling up there to pick those up.
Wow. Okay.
It's been a lot of work. I mean, I can tell you, if you've given me bottle caps, we'll be able to see the fruit of that labor for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've been over the
So
years.
staff is going.
Staff is
Correct.
going
No
to get
students.
them.
Pick them up. Okay, no students.
No
No
students.
students,
Two
just
adults.
staff. And in all
Rental
actuality,
vehicle.
they won't ship it. They have to go and
Yeah.
pick it up.
Oh, wow.
So they are traveling to Indiana.
Good for them.
From our bottle tops that we've drank here.
That's not a short
Is
ride.
that-
That
that's
is
how-
gonna
And
be
it's funded-
interesting.
the trip's
Are they
funded-
gonna bring it to the next board meeting?
I don't know,
They'll-
we're
and
gonna bring you, we'll bring you a picture.
At least a picture.
And
Bring you a
thank
picture.
to the Ed Foundation for helping fund the grant,
Thank you,
the
thank
travel.
you.
So thank you for that.
Yay,
as well.
yay, yay.
Thank you, Beaver.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Any,
Okay.
any questions?
No.
No?
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to human resources, 11.01, job description for student services. Mr. Olet.
And as they're transitioning here, I do want to also mention, when we were talking about our mental health services, that through a grant that Ed Foundation has for resiliency, they also pay for 2 additional mental health therapists within the organization as well. So I wanted to acknowledge that from a previous,
Great,
one of our
thank you.
previous
The
things.
more the merrier.
Yes.
Board,
Thank you.
Superintendent Moore, this job description is a new job description for us, but it serves the function that has been elevated within the Department of Student Services and was previously done by a social worker within the department, so that would make it cost neutral at this point. And I have Mr. Finelli here, who could probably explain a little bit better than I some of the details about the position.
Sure. So this position in the past was a social worker position, but it didn't really capture the essence of the work that needed to be done. So we really wanted to put together a job description that focused specifically on the work of that person, which was a district social worker at the county office. Now we'd be looking to change that position to attendance and truancy specialist. And their focus would be to support all 9 schools in students that are chronically truant, which we define as 21 or more days unexcused absences. Find out why they're unable to come to school, and then work with those families to get them re-engaged in their education. Because we know that no matter how good the education is and our teaching professionals are, if the kids aren't coming to get the learning, it's all for naught. So this person would support all 9 schools and support our school-based social workers in elevating their concerns for attendance and truancy to the next level, to a district office level.
Gotcha.
Fiscal impact?
None, because we've had this position, it was just called a district social worker.
So we're just
And now we're
changing it up.
changing the title and making the job description specific to the work that they're doing.
Yeah, I like those. That's good.
And if, so in this intervention here, would it be, for example, if there was a student that's been truant many days, would it be to assess, maybe not physical presence, but maybe offer them, other programs like iFlagler, things like that, to get them engaged that way, or is it bringing them back to campus?
So it's all of the
All of
above.
the
So
above.
it's to look at whatever the barrier is that's preventing them from accessing their education, seeing if there's a better way to provide them that education, whether it's through iFlagler or through another educational opportunity. But it also is that if at a certain point they're not re-engaging in their education and they're required to do so by law, this position would be the person that would then work to represent the district in taking them to court, which of course is not what we want to do,
Right.
but what we are required to do by law if they're not engaging in their
So
education.
this is a preemptive before that, so hopefully we can get them to voluntarily start coming back to school.
This is our effort to do everything we can to avoid having to do that.
Excellent. Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, then we will move on to 11.02, request board approval of personnel. Thank you, Mr. McMillan.
Thank you.
And this is just the standard slate of personnel actions that are in the early forms as we progress through July.
I just,
We're still on. I didn't look at the resignation list.
yeah. I hate losing Brian Willard. I hate losing that program. That's been a great loss to this district and those kids that he served and his program served. I mean, that's almost 400 kids that got their GEDs and internships.
Do we have an
Are gone.
update? Yeah,
It's gone.
do we have any kind of an update, Mr. Delaney or Superintendent Moore, on the whole conversion and,
We know that Ms. Kirkland has been assigned to the board. We have sent our letter from the school district as well as from the school board, asking them to reconsider. I think they've had their first meeting.
Had the first
That
meeting
was-
July
that was-
1st.
Yes,
That
that
was
was
July 1st.
structural.
The new group.
Yes, meeting.
how many people are from Flagler County?
There'll be 3.
How many people are on the board?
Andy will eventually be 1.
Right.
There's a lot. And we get 3, I
Maybe
think 27.
15? Yeah,
And
I
I
know
think,
there are a
yeah,
lot,
there's a
yeah.
lot, and I think we get 3. And I am working, I've had work with Al Hadid and the attorneys from the county, we're working, they wanted a copy of the budget that he had submitted, that Brian had submitted, and, which I got from Mashaka, because he couldn't get into, he's locked out, because he's already resigned. So we got that to them. I don't know what their angle is, I don't know what's going on. Donnie O'Brien was at the meeting, so he has more of an upgrade of what they said.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look good, and now, I hate writing a reference, but Brian Willard took a job at Melbourne.
Oh, did he go to Melbourne? I thought he was going to Tampa.
Tampa, no, I thought it was Melbourne, but I don't know, maybe it's Tampa.
Okay.
Same kind of job,
Yeah,
probably,
yeah.
but he's doing, we're gonna do okay, but he's gotta move.
A couple things. One, I want to also acknowledge the Ed Foundation because in the closing of this grant, there were students that were not finished. And so the Ed Foundation is providing the financial resources in order for us to get those 15 students to be able to finish with their GED so that they do not have to join another program. And we are doing our best to support students and look at ways that we can increase our capacity within the GED programs that we currently offer. But I do want to acknowledge that, I mean, when it closed, not every kid was finished. And so the Ed Foundation is providing the salary for one staff member to stay on to finish, as well as the cost for the practice test, as well as the main test as well.
There
for those
was
students.
money in the budget. When Brian, I last spoke to Brian, he had left money in the budget. I know he was gonna divvy up.
Probably wasn't enough.
No, there was like 30,000 in the budget, and he was gonna divvy up some,
All of the dollars
some
at our
extra money,
point,
bonuses to people.
all of the dollars by the time we were engaged were exhausted. And so for us, you know, we want to just make sure those students get a chance to
No, I'm
finish.
glad that's happening, and I know who's doing it, but we've gotta get their HR paperwork figured out, because they need to know how to be paid. Because they contacted, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and they need to contact HR or payroll if they're having an
Yeah,
issue
there was no
with that.
there was no,
They're gonna get paid.
okay, they know.
They're
They know.
gonna get paid.
We just
for
have to
sure.
get it through the right circle.
Yeah, they're
Okay.
gonna get paid, and they just need to reach out to HR if they have any questions or concerns about how they're gonna get paid.
They will be.
Yes, they will definitely be paid.
On a positive note, it is good to see that there's actually an awful lot of new teachers that we were
Mhm.
able to hire.
And we're in a really good place
We,
right now.
we are looking as far as our hiring situation. And I check it every day, so comparatively to the past 4 years, we're in a really good spot. I only see one math vacancy in the high
That's
order
huge.
secondary vacancies. I see, a half dozen elementary vacancies, and then the next thing as far as needs assessment would be our paraprofessionals. But even those numbers are, less than a dozen.
Yep.
And to be at this point in July and to have
Almost
these-
everything full, that's huge.
we're looking in a good. Now there's still movement to happen. There's still people that may disappear and
Yeah.
go to Oklahoma tomorrow, but
Right.
it's not in mass.
Yeah, and that's good. That helps.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Mr. Ock.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay, so we will move now to public comment. Are there any public comments? Okay.
I think our public left.
Yeah. It's pretty sparse in there,
Yeah.
in here right now, so.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll close public comment, and we'll go to board member requests. Any board member requests?
Too tired to think.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's the discussion topics that are in there, if you want to review those, upcoming, any comments on those?
Just to let you know,
Okay.
I had let you all know I would not be at the July 23rd meeting. My travel plans have changed. I will be at the July 23rd meeting.
Oh, good.
Closing comments.
No, I don't have any at this point. Well, I do. I have one. And that is to congratulate our students and our staff and our administrators for making a mark on fast testing. It's nice to see. The increase wasn't large, but it was up, and that's what matters. It's going to keep getting up, and we're going to get better. And we're going to get better, and that's because of all those people with the support of their families making it happen. So that is my public comment. So that's a good thing.
I'll associate myself with those comments.
It's true.
I would say the same.
Yeah.
We're moving the needle. and
Yeah,
that's
going the right way.
Yes, we are.
If there is any feedback or you want something changed with the listing of the upcoming board topics, but that's where we are planning to put them month after month. So, you know, if you guys have other feedback and want us to make any changes, please let us know. I too am very proud of the work that our entire team has done because it does take each and every one of us from the board to everyone within our organization, within Flagler Schools, everyone within the Education Foundation and all other groups that come alongside us in order for us to move in the direction that we're going. And I have high hopes and a lot of great anticipation for the future because we got great things in store.
Yes, we do.
Agreed.
All right. This meeting is adjourned.